Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much there, Jack61, and welcome everyone. Welcome everyone on the panel and welcome everyone in chat. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. Silkman and I'm from the Foul Play team. And thank you so much, guys, for following us and supporting us. It is very much appreciated. Everyone here at the Foul Play team appreciates your support, and it's fantastic. Like I said, guys, thank you for joining us. And let us know in chat where you're listening from or where you're watching from. I'm from Adelaide, South Australia, and I know that we have a lot of people from all over the world. Please let us know in chat. Well, look, guys, today, I'll tell you what, it continues. The story and the saga continues. As you know, it's been very, very controversial, and I hope that you guys have learnt a lot throughout this Reading with the Crew series, especially this particular chapter. And again, guys, today we're going to deep dive again. We're going to look at certain individuals. We're going to look at the canines, what they did. I tell you what, the mystery deepens. But I honestly believe that we're getting closer. And guys, before we start the podcast, I want to ask a question to everyone on the panel and everyone in chat. Do you believe that this case is going to be solved? In other words, there's going to be a resolution. We're going to find out who the real killer and real killers are. So think about that one. Well, look, guys, I'd like to introduce everyone on the panel today. First of all, we have Andy B. Andy B, how are you coming along? How are you coming along?
I'm coming along fine, Doc. Thank you very much. Hello to fellow panel members and everyone in chat. It's been a long, hard day in the studio for me, but I'm really looking forward to this episode.
Awesome.
I love the dog stuff.
Thank you so much, Andy B. Thank you. Next, we have Susan. Susan, how are you coming along?
I'm good, Doc. Pretty good this afternoon. And yeah, I'm excited about this podcast today. So let's get to it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Next, we have Jack61. Jack61, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Doc. I'm broadcasting from Southwest Michigan in the United States, and I'm doing very well. I want to say welcome to all of the panel members and everyone in the live chat. This is going to be a ripper.
Thank you so much, Jack61. And next we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, panel members. Thank you, everyone in chat. And my bright, sunny disposition is reaching you from Orem, Utah, where it's currently 92 degrees where I live.
Oh, my God. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, here in Adelaide, South Australia, it's actually quite cold. It was about 5 degrees Celsius this morning, so it was quite chilly. It's our winter here. But look, guys, it goes to show that we're from all over the world. It truly is an international panel, and everyone brings their wisdom and good thoughts. And again, guys, it's great to see everyone in chat. Thank you so much, Joffrey, for your donation. Thank you. It's fantastic. Now, Susan, would you like to read out who's joined us in chat? And Jack61, can you put up the very first slide? Thank you.
I would love to, Doc. We have JD with us today. Dark Side of the Moon. Jazznaz Gaming is here. Let's see. For some reason, I'm not scrolling. Gloria is with us. Alligator 57. Hello.
Welcome.
Just Rhonda is in chat, along with Andy B. Pete Moss, Wooden Pallet Pete Moss, as Alice likes to say. Sverre Hegelund is with us.
Welcome.
Sorry if I butchered your name. Graham Moss is here. Anthony D. Duke Juke. Let's see. Jeff Jones is stopping in. Hello, Jeff. Anthony
Welcome.
Hills, Clive Coolidge. Ronald D. Cass is with us.
Fantastic.
And Geoffrey III. Have I
There's even
missed
Brother
anyone?
Uriz. There's Brother Uriz.
And Brother Uriz.
We have little Barb who's just joined us. Well, look, thank you so much, Susan.
You bet.
Well, look, guys, thank you. And Anthony Hills, he's just joined us too. Thank you so much, guys. And as Jack61 put up the picture previously, we're doing this for the memory of Teresa Horbach, who tragically lost her life at a very tender age of 25 years old. And here on the Foul Play team, as I say every week, we do believe in the innocence of both Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey. We all agree, I believe, that neither of them had received a fair trial. Susan, do you have a comment?
No, I'm sorry, Doug.
Oh, no hassles at all.
Forgot to mute.
No problems at all. But here on the Foul Play team, I'm very proud that we follow the evidence wherever it goes, good, bad, or otherwise, and we dive deeply. So, as you know, guys, we are doing a very important chapter and series at the moment entitled Canine Noses. This is about the cadaver dogs and also the bloodhounds or scent dogs that were present on the Avery salvage yard and beyond the Avery salvage yard. But I tell you what, this chapter really, from John Ferak's book, The Wrecking Crew, we've massively expanded it. We really, really have. And we've just discovering so many new things. Now, we deep dived into the RAV4 and how that was found, using air quotes, by Pam Sturm and her daughter Nicole on November the 5th, 2005. And now we're having a look at a couple of very interesting individuals. And one of them that we're going to be continuing today is Sergeant Jason Jost from the MTSO. So if you've been following along in the series, guys, this is now episode 40, believe it or not, of the Reading with the Crew. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed the series so far. And if you've been following the series, we're on part 17, believe it or not, of Canine Noses. And at the moment, we're reading passages, or going to be reading passages, from chapter 14. So guys, if you like what we do, please subscribe. Leave your DNA on the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the podcast series, and share our podcasts. The more people that can know about the Foul Play team and our podcasts, the better. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're kept up to date with any podcasts or special program that we put on. And I'd like to welcome everyone in chat, also our mods and our super mods and all the hard people that work in the background. You may not see them here on the live, but let me assure you, a lot of people work, like Uriz, Zoe and others work very, very hard in the background to keep this coming along. And guys, we do this for you, right? Without your support, without your encouragement, it'll be so much harder to do. So again, thank you so much, guys. Well, look, today we're going to be continuing having a look at Sergeant Jason Jost. Now, we started last week, and I'll tell you what, this is one very interesting character. We're going to hone in on his so-called feeding of bear that was done on November the 7th. But also, what we're going to uncover is what were his other activities on November the 7th. Get ready to have your mind blown, right? Sergeant Jason Jost is a very, very interesting character and a very important person of interest. Jack61, Susan, do you have a question?
I just wanted to address this question in chat before we got started.
Of course.
Graham Moss is asking, the officer that refused to take pictures of the burn pit How did he know it was altered? Did he see it before they found the bones?
There's, in my opinion, remember, Errol was there on November the 5th. There were a lot of people that were there on November the 5th. And I'm pretty confident, and Jack 61 will come in a second, I'm pretty confident that they all had a look at the burn pit. Because when you think about it, there were many, many officers all over the Avery salvage yard. Errol must have seen the burn pit, Stephen Avery's burn pit, when he later returned on November the 8th to bring his sifting equipment. I think it became pretty obvious to him that there were changes that occurred in the burn pit, and he absolutely refused to take pictures. Jack 61, excellent question, by the way. Jack 61.
I feel exactly the same way. I think Ertl had seen the pit on the 5th, took note of it. Just not necessarily a detailed exam, but he could definitely tell when he came back on the 8th that it had been altered, and he's like, screw you, I'm not photographing this, and I don't blame him one bit. I'd like to have had the pictures, don't get me wrong, but there's that line you don't cross, because now he's responsible for representing what's there. and it wasn't.
100% correct. Thank you, Jack 61. Susan.
Yeah, I'll say also that it is possible that when he got to the burn pit, Jost had been there, several had been there for an hour and a half before the crime lab arrived.
Correct. An hour and a
So
half.
I also think it's very possible he walked up there and they had a little box with bones in it and were picking bones out of it at that time. So he knew. He could know that way before he,
correct.
considered photographing. So
correct.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Or he just thought, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Correct. 100% correct. And I think Ertl having that concern is actually quite damning, right? Because remember, Ertl and his two helpers, they're part of the crime lab, and they would have been to crime scenes, especially crime scenes that haven't been interfered with. For Ertl to write a response to Tom Fassbender to say, well, if the crime scene has been obviously altered, we don't take pictures. That is a massive red flag. Andy B.
Yes, I agree, Doc. I mean, like, even just walking up there and saying that, I suspect he thought this isn't right. So that was his excuse for not taking pictures. Like, I didn't take pictures because the crime scene had been altered. How much he may have kind of looked at that scene before that date, we're not quite sure, but I suspect he thought, you've got to be kidding. Like, this doesn't look like a crime scene.
Correct. Again, that's quite damning. But you know what, guys? The most damning photographs were taken by Trooper Reese, right, Jack 61?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do. And Ertl has been around the block by this point in time in his career. So I'm sure he quickly understood the fact that on the witness stand, if these pictures got, posted up as exhibits from November 8th, there could have been questions that could have led to him saying, well, it did. I came upon this scene and started taking photos, and it could have came out, and that would have been extremely damaging to the case and himself personally.
Correct, and that's 100%. You got to maintain your integrity, right? And at least I give kudos to Ertl for saying, hey, look, the scene has obviously been altered. We don't take pictures. And I have an awful feeling that Ertl would have been very, very hurt, personally very hurt, because the common theme in this entire case is that the crime lab is always called last, right, guys? They are called last, or they're called up to provide their sifting equipment. Now, the crime lab, right, they should be taking over and they should be taking charge of any particular crime scene and process the crime scene. It looks like that Erdl and his team were always an afterthought. They were always called in last. And what is very disturbing is that you don't have any video footage or photographs of the burn pit or the sifting apparatus or the process that was done on November the 8th. The entire thing was done incognito. And to me, that's a real worry. But Jason Jost, Sergeant Jason Jost, has left some very important breadcrumbs. Susan, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say, I could swear I've seen photos of some of the sifting. Do we not have those? Is that just in my brain?
There's none on November the 8th.
Yeah,
now, what we're going to do is have a look at what happened on November the 10th, right? November the 10th is when Pevito took over. And the amazing thing, guys, if you weren't aware of it, the actual burn pit was processed 3 times. 3 individual times. Now, there is photographs of the sifting, but that's done back in the crime lab, back in some type of enclosure. There are none that I can see that I've ever seen of processing in situ, right? So here's the big issue. When you find a bunch of bones, it's very important to determine the anatomical connection of those bones, right, guys? You want to actually prove that the individual has been cremated at the primary burn site, Jack 61.
Well, personally, given Wisconsin state law, why wasn't the very first call after Jost allegedly found whatever to the county coroner? That's the first
100%.
call.
Yep, 100% correct. So, guys, keep in your mind, no one reported anything nefarious on November the 5th, November the 6th, November the 7th, and all of a sudden, November the 8th is when all the action took place, right? So it's hard to believe because we've shown you the login and log out sheets. There were literally close to 200 people per day on and around the Avery salvage yard. None of the officers, including those that videotaped on November the 6th, remember guys, the 2 detectives that photographed, videotaped Bear being very passive, none of them reported anything nefarious. No one saw any bone fragments, nothing. Everything started to happen the moment Jason Jost picked up a bone fragment, and then boom, everything happened, right? So it's very interesting. So Jack 61, can we have the very first slide, A1? And guys, if you got questions in chat, just put a little Q and we'll try and answer the questions the best that we can. All right. So, Susan, do you see slide A1?
I do, Doc.
Now, I'm going to get Susan to read this out again. This is a very important cryptic clue. Now, Jason Jost wrote this in an MTSO report. Jason Jost never wrote a CASO report, and correct me if I'm wrong, he never appeared in any of the pre-trials or pre-trial or Stephen and Brendan Dassey's trials. Jack 61.
No, I remember I looked while we were chatting.
Well.
Yep. And he's mentioned a shit ton of times, but as far as actually giving testimony, no.
Yep. And when you think about it, he's the crucial individual that found the very first bone fragment. He never testifies. He does a Mike Bushman. He disappears. Susan, would you like to read out the slide, please?
I will. On 11/07/05, I was asked to feed the dogs, which were present on Stevens' property and also at the residence to the east of Stevens. This is by Jason Jost. I remembered seeing the burn pile at that time while I was feeding the German Shepherd, which was tied up behind Stephen's garage. I noticed there were some items tangled in the cable that the dog was fastened to. While feeding the dogs, Manitowoc Police Department Officer Jason Koenig and Officer Wilterding assisted me, of Manitowoc. Due to the aggressiveness of the German Shepherd, I was unable to retrieve the 5-gallon pails, which were placed next to the kennel, this being where the food and water are kept. We were able to keep the German Shepherd far enough away from us so that I could pour some food on the ground and also fill up a small water dish.
Okay. So, that's very, very interesting. So quite clearly, according to Jason Jost, he had poured some food on the ground, right? And somehow those other 2 officers were able to keep Bear at bay due to his aggressiveness. And Jason Jost said that he had poured some food on the ground, and I think he added some water, right? Now, we've got some incredible members on the Foul Play, especially in Discord, right? And a big kudos and a big shout out to Duke, who said, Dr. Silkman, I've actually seen some pictures of food on the ground. And lo and behold, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So a lot of us have seen these photographs hundreds of times, right? But it's amazing how you can fail to pick things up if you don't know what you're looking for. So right next to the white bucket, lo and behold, and on the next page, I've actually got a blown up picture of it. There is dog food, right? There is dog food on the ground, fairly close to the white bowl. Now, to the right of that picture, you can actually see Bear. Bear's, this is on slide A2. We'll go back to it in a second. You can actually see the chain of Bear. So the question is, how on earth would Jason Jost be able to put food in that position there? Susan.
I just want to say kudos to Duke Juke.
Oh,
11.
yeah.
That is an incredible find.
That is
I never would have seen it, I don't think, just looking at the photos.
No.
Good job.
No, not at all. So, Jack 61, are we on A2? Picture A2?
Yes.
So
yes, Doc. We're on A2.
A2. So if you focus on the dog food, I'll talk about it in a second, right? So we now need to work this out, right? Quite clearly, there's a big white bucket, and we've shown that on November the 6th, that white bucket was there, right? Early on, it wasn't. Then later on in the afternoon, those 2 detectives with their video camera showed that the white bucket was there. Now we've got food sitting on the ground. Now the question is this: how did that food get there? According to Jason Jost, he's the one that put it there. The other 2 officers somehow had sequestered a bear in another location. Jack 61, do you have a comment?
Yeah, they're over there saying, "Good boy, you're such a good boy. Come here, bear. Come here, you're a good boy." And probably gave him a couple of hot dogs. And in the story, he was not a vicious dog. It's bullshit.
Correct. Now you're gonna see a picture where that white bucket is completely full of dog food, and there's no problems at all of Bear sticking his snout into that dog food. No problems at all. So the question is, how did this food get there? Right? Now we know that both Carla and Barb, they fed Bear and their 2 dogs on November the 6th. Right? Now, there's a video, we've shown you the video that shows the white bucket near the kennel, and that's full of food. there was also a blue bucket next to the kennel, which was likely full of water. So Bear, on November the 6th, had plenty of food, plenty of water. Jason Jost, in an MTSO report, says, no. He fed Bear, but because the dog was so vicious, he dropped the food on the ground. Now, there's no doubt there's food on the ground next to the white bowl. Now, Barb comes back on November the 8th, remember? And she feeds the dogs again, right? So the dogs are fed on the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. And Bear was removed by 2 vets on November the 9th. So what we've got is a pile of dog food just sitting on the ground. Now, Jack 61, can we have a look at slide A3? So this is fantastic finding by Duke. Kudos. That's an incredible observation. There it is. The food is right there. But if you have a look at it, right, and people in chat and on the panel, there's something very wrong with that pile of food, right? And to me, Jason Jost says that he poured that food on the ground on November the 7th, right? But if you have a look at the food, it looks completely untouched. It's in a pile. Now, if you've got a dog and you pour food like pellets on the ground, is a dog, an Alsatian German Shepherd, just going to take one little dog biscuit at a time? Or will a dog create a huge mess and put the dog food everywhere? Jack 61.
Oh, it'd be scattered. It'd be scattered everywhere. Absolutely.
Correct. If you have a look at that food, tell me, does that look like it's just been freshly poured on the ground?
What it looks to me like, Doc, is there was a bowl in that hole that you see there, and it's overpour.
Correct. The actual white bucket has been moved. Susan.
Well, I think because that 5-gallon bucket of food was sitting there, and Bear had access to as much food as he wanted, I think he may have just ignored this pile. I don't know.
That's
He may have stuck his nose in it, took a bite or two, but he had a lot of food in front of him. So
correct.
That's my thoughts.
But it begs the question, did Jason Jost know that the white bucket was full of dog food? Yes or no?
He said he did. He said he did.
Right. And the question is this, where did he get the dog food from?
Right.
Can anyone in the chat on the panel answer the question? Where did he get the dog food from?
Well, he had to get it out of that other bucket that's in the doghouse. We saw it's full of food.
Right. So if Bear has literally got a whole bucket of food, yep, was there any need to get additional food and pour it on the ground?
I don't think so. I don't know why you would do it personally, but
Susan.
Yours says maybe from Stephen's garage he got other food.
But the what is interesting is that Barb said that when she fed the dogs, she got the dog food from her garage. And I think there's a video of those two detectives that go inside Barb's garage, and on the inside of her door, right next to her door, there's a whole container of dog food, right? So it's very, very interesting. The question is this, was this just a ruse to him to justify being right next to the burn pit, right? Because, hey, there's dog food there. Yeah. I went to the... So this is interesting. If Jason Jost poured the dog food there, so, in the previous picture, A2, can we go back one, Jack 61? Right? Have a look where the dog food has been poured on the ground. right? So if we can go back to picture A2, look how close it is to the burn pit. Are you trying to tell me that he saw no bones, no cremains, and most importantly, no smell? Is anyone slightly suspicious? He is literally meters away from the burn pit. Is anyone suspicious? Andy B, what about yourself?
What was the question again, Doc? Sorry.
Are you suspicious that where he poured the dog food, he was literally meters away from the burn pit? He never saw any bone fragments. He never smelt anything nefarious, and he was that close to the burn pit. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm suspicious. Yeah, it does look as though it's. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't recall. What about yourself?
Definitely suspect.
Yep. Now remember, he is a sergeant, right? He's meant to be a trained officer. He's in a crime scene. He never notes anything on November the 7th. What about you, Susan?
Yeah, well, he even says in his report, which in my eyes is TMI, he says, I noticed the burn pit at that time.
Correct.
And says nothing else about it. Yeah.
Correct. And we've seen the pictures taken by Trooper Reese on November the 6th. There's definitely no pile of bones in the ash. Nothing. Jack 61, what about yourself?
Yeah, it's like this argument that I've been in with a guilter. There's one of two things happened. We see from Trooper's Reese photo on November 6th, there is no pile of bones in that burn pit. It's not there. So sometime
Correct.
between November 6th and November 8th, when Jost makes this discovery, somebody poured those bones in that pit. Okay, let's just say Sturdivant's telling the truth, and it was there. Who the hell poured the bones in there? Or it's all a ruse, it's all on paper, and it's just an excuse for them to be able to write these reports and not take any photos. Because remember, they fucked with the scene. So Ertl says, "Screw you! I'm not taking any photos. You've altered it." And so everything's now on paper. We have no in situ anything.
That's correct. No in situ anything. Thank you, Jack 61. Susan, did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, it's also said, and I forget by who, when they first found the bones, that they were very obvious.
Oh,
very
that's correct.
Obvious bones sitting there. Yeah.
That's and to make matters worse, Sturdivant even said that from where he was, he could see the bones intertwined in the wire in the burn pit. And you're thinking to yourself, something's not right here. And Brother Uriz made a very important comment. Trooper Reese was actually closer to the burn pit when he took the photographs. He never saw any bones. You could see the ash. There's no bone pile in the ash, and you can't see any white objects intertwined in the wire. And we're going to get to that, I promise. Just Rhonda, are you suspicious about Jason Jost in the proximity where he was?
Yeah, I'm pretty suspicious of Jost, the Joker.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. Yeah, but you see, Jack 61, thank you, Just Rhonda. Jack 61 nailed it on the head. These officers can write anything in any report. So if Jason Jost was ever questioned, well, mate, what are you doing next to the burn pit? Oh, I fed the dog. Are you sure you fed the dog? Yeah. There's photographic proof. You can see the dog food, right? But I think everyone will agree that dog food has been untouched. It could have just been a simple ruse. Hey, look, I was at the burn pit. I didn't notice anything. I didn't smell anything. Oh, I fed bear. But notice what Kratz and others consistently say about bear. He's aggressive. We've got video evidence that he's non-aggressive, photographic evidence that he's non-aggressive. And Bobby Dassey even said it on the stand, Bear's demeanor is that he was calm. And we've seen it, right? And so the ruse is this. They needed time to work out what they were going to do. They needed time. So nothing, no bone fragments are found on the 5th, 6th, 7th. They're suddenly found on the 8th. And what event took place on the 7th, Jack 61?
Cuss Road.
Cuss Road did. Okay. And there's a whole group of searchers, part of search team A, that were in that vicinity. And Jason Jost admitted being at the burn pit, right? So Jack 61, can we have a look at picture A4, please?
Yeah,
Now, this is where it gets... Yes, Jack 61.
Yeah, speaking about, just a brief comment, speaking about these officers just writing reports, basically everything is in a report. There's no photographic evidence or video. And, you know, if we look at this and somebody says, oh, well, I just believe the police officers that were there, well, that's fine for you. Even if it's, you know, a minor fender bender, okay. But we're not talking about a minor fender bender. This is deadly serious. Somebody's life in prison. So
two people in prison.
2 people in prison. So you need
two
to back
people in prison.
Yep, you got to back that up with something more than a report or somebody getting on the stand and testifying. I'm sorry, I need more than that.
Correct. And just to give you an analogy, if you get a letter in the mail saying, oh, you've been fined $200 for speeding at this particular location, what's the first thing you're going to demand? Well,
you need the radar. You need the radar results.
You need photographic proof.
Yep.
Photographic proof. So can you see, guys, the state has had it both ways. They've come up with a narrative and they don't have any photographic or video evidence to back it up. Susan?
Yeah, because of that, I think Jack just suggested that it's possible that it's just everything's on paper and nothing actually happened with bones. But I myself don't feel that's possible because it would involve too many people keeping their mouths shut, being in on this. I don't think I think somebody put bones there.
In my opinion, bones were present, but they were dumped.
And I have to agree with that they had to be dumped after the 6th.
Correct. They were dumped. And it's really interesting that there are buckets everywhere, right? And I believe that there were buckets also at Cuss Road, right? And think about November the 7th, right? And why it's so important. Because that's when they found the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, right? Jason Jost goes and feeds the dog. Then one day later, he's pointing at the bone fragment that he found and he goes, I think we better check the burn pit. And there were hundreds of officers all around. No one saw anything until Jason Jost, who was standing next to a bone fragment with a red flag next to it. Jack 61.
Yeah, speaking about the buckets, and I can't remember if it was Captain Rush from Calumet County or D.I. Shutter from MTSO, but one of them went to Menards or somewhere and bought 15 buckets.
Yes, correct. And some of the photographs, I think Brother Uriz has got photographs at various locations that's got buckets with Menards written on it. So they definitely bought buckets from Menards, right? So look at this. Now, this is even more intriguing, right? This is a photograph taken by Trooper Reese, wait for it, on November the 7th. November the 7th, right? The same day that Jost was feeding Bear. And you can notice there's Bear, right, chilling in the middle of where he normally patrols. You can see the white bucket. You can see the small bucket. But do you notice a pile of food next to the bucket? Does anyone see any food?
I'm not sure what I'm seeing, actually.
It's a
That's
little
that's
grain. It's a little grainy, but I don't.
yeah.
What
If
is
you
that?
go,
What is that black thing that looks like a smokestack over there?
right at the front,
Yeah.
I think that's the deer. There's a deer in the. Remember, This is a greatly expanded picture. There's a deer in the garden, or that could be a pole. But if you go back a couple of slides, you can see that the dog food was poled up quite high. There's no dog food. That means that either Jost added the dog food sometime later after Trooper Reese took this picture, right? Or the dog food was added after the fact. There's no dog food. There's no pile of dog food there. And you notice where the bowl is? It's in the grass. If Jack 61 goes back 2 slides,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Doc, that bowl's been moved to the fucking grass. Come on.
the bowl has been moved. The bowl's been moved. If you go back 2 slides, you can see where the bowl is and where the dog food is. And Susan, you're correct. The bowl was sitting around the dog food. Somebody moved the bowl, right? I don't think Bear's going to be moving the bowl. So this is very, very intriguing regarding the dog food. Guys, do we have any comments or any questions? Are we all good? We all good? Yeah. So if, as Jack 61 put up the picture, the bowl's been moved, and when Trooper Reese took that photo, there's no pile of dog food. And if Jost took a glimpse of inside that white bucket, a bear can easily put his snout in there. And to make matters worse, what was actually present inside the kennel? Can anyone remember from last week?
Dog food.
Dog food.
In a bowl.
Dog
Yeah.
food.
And a bowl.
And a bowl. In a bowl. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? A5.
Yeah, Doc, I just got one comment. I mean, what the fuck's going on in the backyard of Stephen Avery? Because clearly there's a lot of movement around this vicious damn dog.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100% correct. So I was able to put it all together in one collage, right, regarding the dog food. And it's going to be really incredible if the dog food exculpates Stephen Avery. Well, have a look at this, right? On November the 11th, if we look at the left-hand side top, you can see the white bucket. It's 3/4 full of dog food, right? And there's no question that Bear can put his snout in there. However, inside his kennel on November the 11th, there's the blue bucket, and it's 3/4 full of dog food. But if you look at what's interesting is this. Look at the angle that the dog food is at. Does it almost look like someone tipped something from that bucket?
Absolutely.
Look at the angle of the dog food.
That's right.
Does that look like a dog's been through it? No. That looks like someone has picked up the blue bucket and tipped some out. Look at the angle. No dog, I'm sorry. I've had dogs for 25 years. No dog eats at an angle like that.
No.
Guys, would you agree?
Absolutely. I've owned dogs all my life. They don't. I've never seen a dog eat that way. No way.
Right? Then if you have a look at the picture on the top right, you can see the pile of dog food that's untouched. That looks like it's just been freshly poured out, right? Now, Bear was fed on the 6th, the 7th, the 8th. He's got plenty of dog food. And remember, Jason Jost was in the middle of a murder investigation, right? And he suddenly feeds the dog on November the 7th, right? That doesn't make any sense. And if you look at this picture by Trooper Reese, on the bottom right-hand side, there's no dog food there. So someone added the dog food either after the photograph was taken or after the fact. That this was just a simple ruse. Say, yeah. I fed Bear, I poured food on the ground, and that's it, right? So the question has to be asked. I'm going to ask the panel. I'm going to ask everyone in chat. Yes or no? Did Sergeant Jason Jost plant the cremains either from a bucket in Stephen Avery's burn pit under the guise of feeding Bear on November the 7th? So in other words, did Sergeant Jason Jost have the opportunity to plant the bones? Now remember, he's MTSO. And strictly speaking, he should have had another officer from Calumet with him, because the MTSO guys were not meant to be there. And this is quite damning. This is quite damning because on November the 6th, there are no bones there. There's no obvious bone pile. And Sturtevant said, I could see the bones from where I was standing. Wow. Andy B, what do you reckon? Sergeant Jost, was he a potential planter of the cremains?
Yes. A good 90%, I would say.
Okay. So he had the means, he had the opportunity, and it's very easy to carry a bucket because that's all the bone. There weren't that many bones when you think about it. And if anyone asked him, "Hey, I'm feeding the dog. I'm feeding the dog," no one's going to know. NDB.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
A good candidate.
A good candidate. Okay. Excellent. I don't recall. What about yourself?
Looks suspect to me. I certainly think he did.
Okay. Interesting. Now, prior to this podcast or series of podcasts, did anyone put Jason Jost associated with planting bones? I certainly didn't. I certainly didn't. Right. And there you go. Wow. He was there. Susan, what about yourself? Sergeant Jason Jost.
I would say he is the most likely suspect. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Jack 61.
Yeah, him or somebody trusted from Team A, and that may have been willing to make a little transfer. And I did put up a poll, Doc.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Interesting. Interesting. And just Rhonda, what about yourself?
Well, I just have decided that everything that has Jason Jost next to it, his name next to it, is suspicious.
Wow.
I don't know.
Very, very interesting. Right. Now, of course, we don't have any direct proof, and we're not accusing Jason Jost of doing anything, but he was there. He was right at the burn pit. One day later, he finds the first bone fragment, and he points to the burn pit and he whispers to everyone, we better check out the burn pit, right? And Ertl comes along on November the 8th, the same day, 1.5 hours after they find the first bone, and he refuses to take pictures. Just Rhonda, do you have a comment?
Oh, no, sorry, I forgot to mute.
Okay. So guys, do we have any other comments? We're all good? We're all good? All right. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, A6? Now, this one is for the new people on the case, and also for research purposes. Now, this is an excellent photograph, right? It's taken high up, looks like it could be a satellite image or from an aeroplane, but really, really high up. And the reason why this is so important will become obvious in a minute. You can see, Jack 61.
Yeah, Doc, I'm pretty sure this is one of the photographs that the National Guard took for
Okay.
for the I don't know Calumet County, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, you can have a look at the location of various sites, and this is going to be crucial. You can see the Avery salvage yard. Remember, that's 40 acres. That's big. You can see where Stephen Avery's trailer was, right in the corner. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see Mickle's Quarry, which is adjacent to Avery Road. Now, that's where 3 cadaver dogs hit at Mickle's Quarry. 3 cadaver dogs. Erdl went down there and got blood and tissue. Right? Took it to the crime lab, and Culhane said, non-human in origin. Jack 61.
Yeah, I have a question, and you may have answered this already, and I've just forgotten. But what led those dogs to Mickle's Quarry? Do we have that dog handler report?
There is mention in it, but it's Julie Kramer mentioned this in her report, but it wasn't her dogs that found or were directed to Mickle's Quarry.
That's what I thought.
Right?
See, I want to know what led them over there. What track were they following?
Correct. And Diedering told Julie Kramer to bring her dogs back one day after Erdl was there and dug out the blood and the bone fragment or tissue. And the dogs didn't hit anymore because he removed the scent source. He removed the source. He said that he dug 6 feet. So he removed the blood and the tissue. And when the dogs came back the next day, there was no hit. There might have been some activity, but no barking like it was the day prior on November the 6th. So it's very, very intriguing what's going on. So that's Mickle's Quarry. Then you can see the deer camp, the proximity of the deer camp. You can see Cuss Road, right? And the cornfield goes from Stephen Avery's trailer directly to Cuss Road. And that cornfield was a hotbed of activity by the dogs. And Loof, who's a scent dog, who was scented for Teresa Hallbark, Loof wasn't interested in the burn pit, the burn barrel. Loof went directly to Cuss Road. And when Loof was at Cuss Road, Pagel prevented Loof from crossing the crime scene tape. So what the hell is a scent dog going directly, making a beeline to Cuss Road? And remember, Susan asked the question a few months ago. I can't answer the question. If they found Teresa Hallbark or evidence of her murder there, why didn't they try and pin it on Stephen Avery? Right? And I can't answer that question. Why? It looks like something that they found wouldn't have worked. So they brought in my opinion, they brought everything back to the Avery salvage yard to target Stephen. And what happens on November the 7th? You've got Jost, who's at the burn pit, right? But you've got detectives at Stephen Avery's burn barrel who magically discover the burnt electronics. Siders, who's part of Search Team A. And who was the boss of Search Team A? Who was the boss? Who was in charge?
Retired Reserve Deputy Mike Bushman.
Mike Bushman was the boss of Search Team A. And Mike Bushman, like Jost, doesn't write any reports, nothing, never appears in the trial. Jost writes an MTSO entry only because he was asked to. Remember, Jack 61, you played the phone call? Otherwise, there would have been nothing.
Yeah, Jost wasn't even going to write a report till Siffel said, well, the boss wants me to get all these reports together, and so he was kind of forced into it. But he wasn't going to write a damn thing after
Correct.
what he allegedly found.
Correct. Correct. He wasn't going to write anything. He was going to do a coal burn. So we've got Stephen Avery's trailer. We've got his burn pit there, of course. We've got Cuss Road. And have a look in blue how big Redon's quarry is. It's massive, right? And in Redon's quarry, right next to County Highway Q, I think it was October the 31st, the evening of October the 31st, Growell smells something very, very unusual. Wow. And you have a look at it. Have a look where he was at the rock crusher. The rock crusher, I believe, is right on the left-hand corner inside Redon's property. Have a look where Stephen Avery's burn pit is. Are you trying to tell me that the smell went all the way from there to Growell, where he was, and no one in the Dassey household or anybody visiting the property said, what the hell is that smell? Right? So there's something weird going on. But if you think that's crazy, right next to Redon's quarry is the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? And that is where they found the pelvic bone fragment and other bone piles that were human, right? In Dr. Eisenberg's report, she said they were human, burnt bones, human, but she refused to classify the pelvic bone fragment as human. That's in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. So guys, can you see? We have multiple points of interest and none are on the Avery salvage yard. You've got a point of interest in Mickle's quarry. You've got a point of interest at Cuss Road. You've got something weird happening at the rock crusher in Redon's quarry. And you've got bones showing up in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. So see that picture? That's the crime scene. It was massive. Does anyone have any comments? What red flags immediately go up, guys? What red flags go up? That whole thing is the crime scene. Jack 61.
I bet that D.I. Shedder's kicking his own ass for calling in the dogs. I mean, he should have, but
100% correct, right? So, guys, keep this picture in mind because the next couple of slides is going to explode your head. So, Jack 61, do we have any questions in chat? Are we all good? Are we all good? All right. So now let's focus on Sergeant Jason Jost. He's from the MTSO. For a start, he shouldn't be on the property, right? The whole investigation was turned over to Calumet. Jost should not have been there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at his log in and log out. And he was a very, very busy man. Oh boy, he did a coal burn. I'm going to ask the question. Oh, sorry, just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to ask a question for Anthony Hills, but Susan answered it in chat.
Oh, okay. So we're going to have a look at where Jason Jost was, and most importantly, who he was with, right? Where was he? Who was he with? And I believe he's definitely part of Search Team A. And Search Team A had a very important assignment at Cuss Road, near the cornfield, and around Stephen's property. But Jason Jost went somewhere else. You wait till you find out where he went. And according to Jason Jost, he said that he fed Bear and the dogs, remember there are 3 dogs on the property, on November the 7th. He sees no bone fragments, noticed no smell, but one day later, he finds the very first bone in the grass, 8 feet south of the burn pit. That's marked by a red flag. He's such a crucial witness. He's never called as a witness in any trial, which is truly remarkable. Guys, do we have any comments or any questions in chat? All right.
It looks good.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks good to me from
Looks
what I
good?
can see.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, yep. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the very next slide, please, which is B2? I don't recall. Can you see the slide B2? We'll just wait for Cherie. I don't recall. Can you see the slide? Or she may have stepped away. Susan and Rhonda, do you see the slide B2?
Yes, I do.
Yep. Susan, can you read the question? And
Sure.
yes, Rhonda, can you read the answer? Now, this is Siders, who's part of Search Team A in the Stephen Avery trial. Let's go for it, guys.
Question. Could you tell us, please, what your areas of responsibility were that day?
Myself, along with Sergeant Scott Singleb, Deputy Mike Bushman, and Sergeant Jason Jost, responded to 12930 Avery Road, would be the Avery Salvage Yard, to assist Calumet County Sheriff's Department searching the property.
All right. So what we talked about this last week. Thank you, guys. What is interesting here is that Sergeant Scott Senglob, one day prior, allegedly got a phone call from Tom Sawinski, right, about seeing two people pushing up a RAV up Avery Road. Deputy Mike Bushman was one of the arresting officers of Stephen Avery in 1985. Deputy Mike Bushman was in semi-retirement, and he was sought out to come out to help and assist his MTSO. And he also happens to be a canine handler. The dog that he used to have was called Duke. And Sergeant Jason Jost just appears out of the blue, right? All four of them are all MTSO, right? And remember what Kratz was saying during the trial? Oh, no. Even though the MTSO officers were there, they were shadowed by other officers, which is very, very interesting, right? So it looks like that Jason Jost was part of Search Team A, Jack 61.
Yeah, the hell they were. Jost wasn't shadowed. That's crap.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. So if we have a look at the in-out log sheet, this is intriguing, right? On November the 7th, Jason Jost logged in 5 times. So he was in and out of the property. And have a look, he logged in at 7:45 in the morning and he logged out at 5:33. He was there all day. He was in and out of the Avery Salvage Yard. Susan.
What time were the electronics found in Stephen's burn barrel?
12:09. 12:09 by
He
Siders.
checked out at 11:32.
Yep.
And went back to cuss, I would guess.
At 12:09, this is it. And we've got it. It's written down by Bushman. He wrote the note, 12:09, Siders finds the burnt electronics, right? Now, remember, it's only, a 5-minute walk from Cuss Road to back to the Stephen Avery's trailer. It's literally across the field. Now, isn't it interesting and intriguing? That's a hotbed of activity for the scent and cadaver dogs. Are you getting the same drift I am? The cadaver dogs and scent dogs go crazy on the berms surrounding the Avery property, Stephen Avery's trailer. Not on the trailer, but the berms. That one of the berms leads to the to where Teresa's car RAV4 was eventually found, and the other berm leads directly to Cuss Road. Susan.
Yeah, one is a conveyor, leads to the conveyor road, which then you get in to where the rat was from there.
100% correct. Okay, so the dogs are giving the game away. Jack 61.
Yeah, I still struggle trying to wrap my head around why both types of detection dogs would hit on that berm. There has to be some cause.
Correct. So this is what it is, Jack 61. Teresa's scent was there. No question. Loof and the other cadaver dogs are not going to just randomly go and do a call or an alert if Teresa's scent is not there. So Teresa's scent was there. Furthermore, human decomposition was there as well. And that's a worry. Susan.
James Crane made an interesting comment. He said Bushman was also involved in the Ricky Hochstetler hit and run. And we all know that was a cover up. So we know that he is dirty. He's done dirty things before.
Yeah. I promise
and we know,
you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Susan, keep going.
I was just going to say, and of course we know Kasurek did as well, Vogel.
Correct.
And Jean Cachet.
Correct. You're gonna see the same fingers involved in this investigation that nailed Stephen in 1985. The same people involved. Jack 61.
Yeah, speaking about the berm where the cadaver dog and the tracking dogs gave it alerts, I have to now ask, and I don't know that we know this, I don't know that the reports were that specific, but was it in the same source location? That's what really matters, because if the tracking dogs are tracking to a more specific spot, the cadaver dogs track to that spot as well and give a hit. We got a fucking problem here, and a major one.
Huge problem, and also near the conveyor, where that overhead conveyor where it forms a cross, that was a hotbed of activity as well, which we'll look at as well. So there's something weird going on. Now, remember, the state is saying that Teresa was attacked and she never left the property, nor her RAV4, that Teresa was inside Stephen Avery's trailer, and then she was dismembered, shot, dismembered, and then cremated. The dogs and the forensic evidence is pointing away from the property, and that's why Kratz did his very best to insulate the event, that no, everything was localized to Stephen Avery's trailer and garage, burn pit, nowhere else, and Stephen Avery's burned barrel. But you'll see that
that's
Susan.
what the jury. That's what the jury heard. That's what they convicted both of them on. That's story.
Correct. That's correct. Now I'm telling you now that had we been as part of a presenting team back in 2007, and we presented all of this, apart from not leaving the courtroom in one piece, the jury would have been thinking, wait a minute, that's not what the state's narrative is. And that's why you do not call Bushman and you don't call Jost to the stand. And you'll see why in a second. Jack 61.
Can you imagine if this is such a huge miss by Buting and Strain? Can you imagine if they had studied these dog reports? Because the dogs, correct, as we've said 1,000 times, they don't care. They're just working. That's what they do.
Correct.
They didn't hate Stephen Avery.
No, that's correct. That's correct. So notice on November the 7th, Jost is very, very active. On November the 7th, we have Cuss Road, and we have the burnt electronics, and Jason Jost feeds bear at the burn pit, which is in very close proximity to Stephen Avery's burn barrel. It might be a 1 or 2 minute walk, right? And remember, yes, Susan.
He fed bear on the 8th.
No, the 7th.
Oh, no, 7th. I'm sorry, you're right.
7th.
Yep.
Yeah, the 7th. Yep. The same day that they find the burnt electronics, right? So think about this. You've got Siders who discovers the burnt electronics. The same day, you've got Jost feeding Bear at the burn pit, right? You can't even make this up, but wait, it'll get better. So Jason Jost is very, very busy on November the 7th. On November the 8th, he checks in at 8:56 and leaves at 5:20. Remember, Jason Jost on the 8th finds the first bone fragment, points to the burn pit, and assists Errol in the sifting. And they all bugger off at 5:20 because it got too dark, right? So Jason Jost has a hand in sifting the ash. Wow. And then he only appears once on November the 10th, but look at the time he checks in. 8:29 p.m. and then leaves at 11:26 p.m. So it's dark. And then finally on November the 11th, which is the day the burn pit gets destroyed, he checks in at 10:40 and then leaves at 11:59. Does anyone want to have any does anyone have any comments? Jack 61.
What the fuck was he doing there that late?
Yes. Yes. Interesting. So just for our audience, the burn pit gets processed on November the 8th, November the 10th, and November the 11th. It doesn't get touched on November the 9th. Isn't that interesting? So it gets sifted once on November the 8th, and then Pevito comes in on November the 10th and kicks ass. He's had enough. He knows that something weird has gone on. So he processes the burn pit again, and then on November the 11th, they bring in the skid steers and process it again by completely demolishing it. Jack 61.
Yeah, November 9th, I mean, it was later in the day, allegedly, when Sipple called into Calumet County, but I have to wonder what they were doing. I mean, of course, I don't know. I just, and this is speculation, again, but after the key was found,
yes,
I can imagine, if they were just trying to help the case on their own, I can imagine Kratz having a big, gigantic meltdown because we don't have anything reported after the 8th from MTSO. It ends.
Stops. Correct. Yeah. Stops. And the problem is you don't know when they wrote their reports.
No,
and
we don't.
It's very likely it's after the fact.
Oh,
now,
I'm sure.
If you read Jason Jost's report, he starts off with November the 8th, and then he puts in an insert. Oh, by the way, on November the 7th, I fed the dog. So you can see that, I better put that in. Susan, did you have a comment? Susan,
no,
all good?
No, all good? I'm good, yeah.
All right. Now, get ready. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So the question I asked was, well, where the hell did Jason Jost go for the entire day, right? So I went through all the reports. So just flicking through the reports. I was looking for, this is slide D1, Jack 61.
Yeah, there's a dog before. Yeah, it's up, but Ronica's got a question if one of the mods wants to read it out. I just saw Q and
yeah. Let's go for
it. She says,
Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, Ronica Clark. Question: What I don't understand is how with everything we are going over here in chat, why isn't this enough to get Stephen and Brendan a new trial?
Because this wasn't presented. This wasn't presented.
In the original trial?
No, none of this was. You got to understand. None of this was presented.
That's right.
Because as Jack 61 and everybody on the panel alluded to, The one thing they kept out of the trial was the dogs. They kept the dogs out. Right?
Yep.
So
They had the reports of the defense, but they just missed it. They just completely missed this.
Well, have a look at this, right? So I found the Calumet County Sheriff's Department reports. I was looking for Jason Jost, and have a look at this. This occurred on November the 7th, right? And we know the login time, 10:25, but the log out time, see how they all logged out at 8:20, 8:50? It's all wrong. These times are all wrong. But here's the crucial bit. Jason Jost was with Jane Rogers and 2 dog handlers, Benzo and Kiloweski. They're both canine dog handlers. Now look where Jason Jost was. He was in Redonce Pit, north of the main entrance on County Highway Q, area of trailers. This is the actual area, very close proximity to where Groel was, heard reported the smell. Now, remember what Jason Jost said. Remember, guys, in his report, he goes, I started to put this together and someone mentioned that Redonce said that he saw a big fire. Wow. Susan.
Now, this is the deer camp, correct?
No.
Area of trailers. No?
No. This is not the deer camp. This is actually in Redonce Pit. Now,
which is where the camp is.
Not the deer camp. No. Not the deer camp. Jack 61. No, I'll show you.
Doesn't Redon own those trailers? Though?
He does, but Jason Jost isn't there.
Okay.
Are we able to go back to that very first image that I put up? Jack 61, it's A6.
Yep.
Oh, we'll just wait for that. You wait, you're not going to believe this, right? So we'll just wait for A6 to come back up. I'll show you exactly where he was. So can you expand the quarry, Redonce Quarry? And if you have a look at the top right-hand corner, do you see all those elongated structures? You just need to scroll down a bit. Scroll down a bit. Yep, a bit more. See all those white structures? Right there. They're the trailers. And I've seen close-up pictures of them. They're the trailers of the workers in the pit. So, yeah, there. So, Jason Jost was there with cadaver dogs, dog handlers.
And the deer camp's way down here.
The deer camp is right down there. So, because this is next to County Highway Q. And County Highway Q is where a Baruch, saw someone driving a RAV4 on that road, right? Now, isn't that interesting? And that's the same place, because if Jack 61, if you can scroll to the left a little bit, you can actually see the sand where the rock crusher is. So Groel is there, and he smelt the smell. So on November the 7th, Jost is there with 2 cadaver dogs. They're cadaver dogs, right? I checked them, right? They're cadaver. Now, I don't think, Jack 61, we have their report. I don't think we've got their report.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It also shows him his check-in, check-out time like it's the full day. He was there that whole time, which obviously is not true.
No. That's 100% correct. So the times that you see in that sheet are wrong, right? He wasn't there all day, and I'll prove it to you. So Jack 61, if we go back to, so look at this. I never was aware of this. Jason Jost was at Redonce Pit with 2 cadaver dogs. But if you have a look at slide D2, have a look at what they wrote on the back. of that sheet, right? They actually wrote down, this is slide D2, they actually wrote down the GPS coordinates of 2 locations. Now, wait a minute. Why would you write down GPS coordinates of 2 different locations? Why would you do that? Anyone want to have a guess?
Evidence was there.
Possibly of evidence. And notice what they put. Patch of ground. Now, wait a minute. They're in a burn pit. What the hell are they putting down? Patch. There had to be something of interest there. Right, guys? Jack 61.
Yeah, I was going to say that caught my eye when we looked at this the other day. And yeah, that sticks out. That sticks out.
And Duke 11 says dog hits. And that's the obvious thing, right? Dog hits. So they've got 2 GPS coordinates here, patch of ground, and point number 7 is bare ground spot. Now notice what it says, photo, and it's got highway Q. Wow. Remember, that's where Groel was at the rock crusher, and he smelt the smell coming across. He smelled something really unusual. Now, point number 2 is tracks in field deer. Tracks, what does that mean? Is that the dog tracks? That dogs have got some activity or some alerts? Then point number 3, carpeting of Jambo Creek. I think it says old. And then point number 4, photo taken of track by pond by entrance. Susan.
Doc, I have to say, I have never seen this, the back of this sheet. And it blows my mind in this case that as long as I've been on it, there's still stuff you find. I don't know. Maybe everybody else has seen this, but I've never seen this. I do not recall it. Yeah,
I've never seen it.
I've seen it, but I never paid any attention to it.
Correct. But
I'm blown away.
Yeah, but what we've done, I've actually shown you where Jason Jost was. Now you can see why Kratz never wanted to call up Jason Jost, right? Because the dogs were obviously hitting in this area, and these guys took photos.
Doc, yours is asking, how do we know that's the back page of that front page?
It's directly because what you do, they've taken a picture of the front and the back. And if you look at the picture of the front page, if there are creases, you can see what I've done is I've cropped it, but you can actually see the same creases which are on the back, and they all follow sequentially. And Jack 61, myself, and Duke checked the GPS coordinates, and it's very, very close to where Jason Jost was. Right, Jack 61?
Yes, and I will say
we're there.
We do not have any of these photos. They will not release them. They will not release them.
But
wow.
It gets even better. It gets even better, right? Just wait till you see the next couple. So then it goes front end loader track pictures, mud flap old, whatever that means, and then bare ground spot photo. Now we checked the GPS coordinates. It was there at that location, right? There's something weird going on in Radon's pit. There are two canine dog handlers that will be with their dogs. The dogs are doing alerts at that spot, Susan.
So that begs the question: Was Cuss Road a red herring?
No,
I don't think so. No,
I don't think so. No.
You don't think maybe they were finding everything in this location?
No, they were finding. It seems to me that there are several hot beds of activity, not in one spot, and it could have been simply to disseminate or remove a cremain, scatter the cremains.
Well, what's interesting is there are no photos. This is hidden.
Oh no, but you wait till you see this one, right?
Okay, Doc.
So
I can't wait.
it's
Doc,
so
before we move
yeah.
on, and I have to ask this because, and you may not know, but do we know if these two dogs were cadaver dogs or a cadaver dog and a tracking dog, or do we know?
I would dare say they were both cadaver dogs
Okay.
based on the individuals that one was Canine Emergency Response and the
Okay.
other one was Head Warner Search and Rescue. It likely were cadaver dogs. There
See,
were a lot of cadaver dogs on the property and
see,
around the property. A lot of them.
here's two more entities that we don't have jack shit on. Nothing.
No,
Crap.
no. No, and what is dishonest and alarming is that Jost never reported this. Never reported this. He never wrote it. The only thing he wrote in his MTSO report was, I fed bear and I found the bones. Jack 61.
Yeah, and he only wrote the thing about the bones was because Simple forced him to.
Forced him to. Otherwise, all of this you would have never seen. Never seen. And again, it's due to the hard work of people that FOIA'd these documents. And I went through them one by one. I was looking for Jost. And I thought, nah, there's no way I'm going to find anything on Jost. And boom. But it gets better. Can we have a look at slide E1? Now this, I fell off my chair. This is phenomenal. Guess where Jason Jost was? He was in the county gravel pit along the conveyor. And, wait for it, he was with 4 dog handlers, 4 of them. Sean, Michelle, Jeffrey, and Howard. 4, and though I would dare say they were cadaver dogs. This is November the 7th. So all he did was he went from one location and he hopped across the boundary. He was in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Now, who knew that? Anyone in
Is he like
chat?
a fucking ninja or something? Like I don't. It's like
He's a
he just appears
Yep.
everywhere,
Yep.
and out of nowhere he's just appearing at these random places. What the fuck?
he's a busy little bee.
He is creeping me the fuck out. Is all I can say. I don't like this guy.
Me neither.
Doc, I have to ask, how did you put a date on this? It said November 7th.
By looking at the time. See the 2:30? If you go to his login and log out sheets, on November the 7th, he logs in at 2:14 at a specific location. So that's as close as to the sign-in sheet. Let's have a look. Be 2:30. Let's have a look. So the closest one to that time is the 2:14 p.m. login time. There's no other times that he would log in at around 2:30 p.m. because that's 14:30. That's 2:30 in the afternoon. That's the closest time. And these times here, I dare say, are not exact at all, because how can he clock in at 14:30 and log out at 11:40? Right? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
So that means he was there overnight.
That's correct. No, he wasn't there overnight, right? So all he had to do, don't forget, if Jack 61 puts the picture back up, all he had to do was walk across to the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which was literally 50, 100 meters away. So he was there at that location.
Remember the call by, the guy that spotted the rab going into the pit, his daughter?
Yeah. Yes.
She was saying that there was a lot of activity out there. Did she say there were lights as well? I don't know if that was during the day or the evening.
But there were reports of lights being seen in the pit. There were reports, but remember the pit worked 24/7 as far as I'm aware. The rock crushing went on all night. Because I remember.
But the cops were out there because the woman that answered the phone at the police,
Yes,
the dispatcher, whatever, told her, yes, we have people out there. Don't worry about it.
Correct. But this is November the 7th, right? So we now know that Jason Jost was in the company of cadaver dogs in the pit, Redon's pit, and in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. There's no question, Jack 61.
Yeah, just looking at his times here, and then considering what happened earlier in the day, Jost was basically there for 16 hours, basically, something like that.
He was there all day.
All day and way up to almost midnight.
Yep, he was there all day. So if we have a look at the next slide, E2, this is the information that was written on the back of that sheet, and it's just people's names. So it looks like they probably talked to the workers that were either in the pit or in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, because it looks like just people's names and times. And you can see the actual, I think there's a date, the 7th. I could be wrong. It looks like 11/7, something like that, or it could be a phone number. I'm not 100% sure. But they obviously took down the names of people that were there on the back of that sheet, because you can see times that could have indicated when they were working or whatever like that. Jack 61.
Well, two things, actually. I'm pretty sure that DCI interviewed pretty much all the quarry people on the quarry.
Yes.
At some point, and I can't remember exactly when that was.
They did canvassing, and they did canvassing as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. And I forgot my second point, but I'm sure I'll remember it here in a minute.
All right. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at slide F1? Now, this is unbelievable. This is one day after, right? Now, look who's the group leader, Senglob, and look who's part of that team, Jason Jost, and they do a car search on November the 8th. A car search, and on the back, and mind you, everything that I've mentioned here, it's never mentioned in his MTSO report. None of it. And it's never mentioned in trial. So if you look at the back of that sheet, they even drew a map of what they did. So somehow they came across a vehicle which they thought was suspicious, and I think they either towed it or checked it out. I think there's an actual recording, a police recording, but have a look at that, guys. They checked out some type of suspicious vehicle, and I've heard nothing about it. Has anyone else heard about this car search?
No, absolutely not.
Nope.
What?
No, not at all.
Do we have any idea why they were searching this car?
No.
Nope.
No.
And there's I don't remember any dispatch calls over this or radio transmissions. I mean, not off the top of my head anyway.
Correct. And the
it
question
does say
was
drag marks there.
Drag marks, correct. Interesting. Again, this is another unknown. And so a question was asked, does this sheet have a signature to authenticate? They signed it themselves. Can you see the names of the people? They're the individuals that wrote their own names. So this is an incident group time log. And there was one, of course, at Cuss Road. So, but they each signed they signed their own names, and the group leader signed their name. So they would have taken this information and then have written a formal report, but I've never seen one on the car. Susan?
I do recall a report, I think, where they found some stolen items in a car
Okay.
Do you recall that it was some jewelry and they managed to figure out, what that was. It was a car that had been towed there or whatever, maybe in
Okay.
an accident.
Okay.
But that's the only thing I recall. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So that's all I've been able to find on Jason Jost, right? So he's been a very, very busy character. But this, if we can have a look at the next slide, slide G, you're gonna love this, right? So I dare say was a researcher by the name of Andy. He must have looked at the same reports and thought, oh, photos? Oh yeah, that's interesting. Jack 61, can you read this out? So
Yeah,
someone wrote a note to the sheriff.
and I know who this person is. I'm not going to reveal
Okay.
who they are, but I know who it
Okay.
is in the
Okay.
community.
Okay. Would you like to read it out?
Yes. Okay. So this is July 8th, 2020. This is a public records dated June 1st, 2020. Dear Mr. Andy, please accept this correspondence as the Calumet County Sheriff's Office responds to your email dated June 1st, 2020, wherein you requested a copy of any reports, documents, and photographs taken by Sean Metzer, Michelle Metzner, Howard Kozlowski, and Jeff Benzo, as well as any photograph taken by Jost Group on 11/7/2005. The Calumet County Sheriff's Office provided a copy of a 3-page report from Michelle Metzer upon payment of 45 cents regarding documents, photos, statements, and reports from Howard Kozlowski, Jeff Benzo, and Sean Metzer, as well as the photographs taken by Jason Jost. No such records exist.
No such records exist.
Wow. Wow.
More lies. Let me guess who signed this fucking thing. Let me look here. Anybody want to take a guess?
Wiener guts.
Oh my God.
Now, wait a minute. We saw the back of the sheet that clearly had GPS coordinates and it said photos.
Taken.
Mark Wiegert just denied there's no photos.
Yep.
There's no photographs. So
I know where I'm going to request them from.
Yep. So guys, can we have a look at the next slide? This will tie it all together for you, right? And this is mind-blowing. This is slide H, right? So look at this. Jason Jost was in Redon's quarry near the trailers with cadaver dogs, very likely cadaver dogs. Now note the proximity to County Highway Q, where Betzner, what's his name? Bruce. I saw someone driving a RAV4 Baresh around County Highway Q. Near the rock crusher is where Growell smelt the smell, a strange smell. I think it was October the 31st. Jost is down there with cadaver dogs. Jost hops across to the Manitowoc County gravel pit with 3 or 4, I think it's 4, cadaver dog handlers, and they must have bought their cadaver dogs, right? They must be hitting in Redon's quarry and in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? And this is interesting because I've never seen their report. So Jost is at Redon's quarry, the Manitowoc County gravel pit. He did a car search. I don't know where the exact location was. And have a look. Jost is right next to the burn pit on November the 7th, where we know that there were cadaver dogs, scent dogs on that property. Because remember when they were pumping the sewage system on November the 8th? I think it was November the 8th. They had to stop because the dogs were there, right? and have a look at just above Jason Jost's head at Stephen Avery's property. That's the berm that the dogs went crazy for, and the berm on the right-hand side where it's got north, that's the berm that they had activity as well. Now, isn't it remarkable that Jost happens to be in Redon's Quarry, the Manitowoc County Gravel Pit, and on the same day feeds bear right next to the burn pit, and Siders finds the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel, Jack 61.
I don't know about you guys, but it sounded to me like on November 7th, Mr. Jason Jost was on a mission.
Oh, well. I can't prove it, but I'll tell you what, he was everywhere. Now, what I want you to appreciate, guys, and in chat, is what the hell are the dogs doing outside of Stephen Avery's property? Can you see that the crime scene has just become massively expanded? Right?
They're mainly off the salvage yard. I mean, there's some track.
That is the problem. And if you look at Stephen Avery's the salvage yard, where it's got east, just above that is where the RAV4 was found. Now you have a look at this map. Look at all the potential entry points that RAV could have come from. And you can see how obviously and how easy it was to plant, right? From an aerial picture like this, there were many entrance points, right? Does anyone have a comment? Jack 61.
Yeah, I think there were at least 4 entry points that I can just see right here on this high map. There may have been even a 5th one.
Correct. Now, this is where it starts to get really intriguing, right? Because we have a report. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? It should be I1. This is what Julie Kramer wrote, and this now starts to become alarming, right? Who would like to read this one out? Just Rhonda, would you like to read this out? Or do you have a question?
Yeah, sure. But I did want to mention something, though, that Kay said in the chat. She said, can someone request the photos using the coordinates? If you use the document that shows the coordinates and cites photos, they would be backed into a corner. And then she said, not that being backed in a corner would produce results, which that kind of sounds logical to me.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Sheriff Wiegert said, no, there's no photos. No photos exist.
Unfortunately, Wiegert is gone.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop a comment here. Well, yeah, I'm going to do that, but not from, well, maybe from both Calumet and MTSO. But I know who this person was that made the request, and I will bet you $1,000 they included that document with that open records request. I'd bet on it.
Yep. And there's clearly Wiegert does not want you to see those pictures. It's
like the 206 photographs that I requested, and he said, "Oh, no, the CD's broke down. It don't load anymore. Nope, request denied."
I
just want to answer.
Maybe the photos are in Gregory Allen's file. Kay says.
Yeah, correct. Thank you, just Rhonda. Susan.
I just wanted to address Kelly's question. Where did Wiegert go? He retired. He retired at the first of the year, right? Was it?
Right. But when you see this, when you read this, you now understand why Wiegert doesn't want you to see any pictures from this area. Just Rhonda, would you? So this is from Julie Kramer's report. Just Rhonda, if you can read it out, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, you bet. Let's see here. I gotta fix.
It's I1.
Okay, all right. I won. Okay. On November 10, Bob and Julie Kramer returned to the Avery salvage yard with Canine Trace and Canine Brutus in response to a request by Lieutenant Herman of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. We were asked to check a fence line that ran east-west west of Stephen Avery's home. Canine Trace alerted on the first 3 piles of disturbed earth located along this fence line, alert number 14. The rest of the fence line was checked without alert. We were then sent to the county gravel pit south of the Avery property. Canine Brutus was transported by ATV to that location where burn piles and fresh digs had been identified. We checked several areas in the gravel pit and fresh digs in the walls of the pit without interest from the dog. Numerous shell casings and unspent bullets were observed.
May I interrupt
In an
just 1 sec?
area,
Yeah.
Did you notice up there where it says right before alert 14, Canine Trace alerted on the first 3 piles of disturbed earth.
disturbed earth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
The gunfire
And
board?
this is between Stevens Trailer and Cuss Road, I believe, is what I'm understanding.
Close to it, and I'll show you where it is.
There's a fence line there
There's a
that
fence line.
separates that field to the north.
Yep.
Sorry for interrupting, Rhonda. Thank you.
You're okay. In an area of large concrete slabs, several burn piles had been marked. Canine Brutus barked in 2 separate locations on this pile, alert number 15. These locations were double flagged for identification once the locations were logged and mapped for evidence. In both locations, Brutus barked and dug at the burned area in the concrete. We were transported back to command post after this assignment was complete. We were dismissed from the scene at 4:30 p.m.
Holy shit. A cadaver dog. The best
Wow.
cadaver dog hit in the Manitowoc County gravel pit at a burn site on concrete slabs. Are you starting to put 2 and 2 together here, guys?
Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of math here, and I can tell you they would have done anything to keep from, I'm talking about the county, to keep that shit out of public knowledge. Anything.
Correct. Just Rhonda, do you have a comment?
Oh, no, sorry.
All right. Well, let's have a look exactly where Brutus hit. Can we have a look at the next slide? Yeah, yes.
Can I just ask who wrote this?
This is Julie Kramer. This is her report. We have her report. This is Julie Kramer.
Okay.
So this is not a bloodhound. This is a cadaver dog. Brutus, the best dog.
Yeah,
right?
It says Bob and Julie Kramer returned to the Avery salvage yard.
Right, but it's funny the way she wrote it, like she in the third person or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably how they write a professional report. But this is from Julie Kramer.
Yeah, it's in the narrative. It's in the narrative.
Yeah, correct. Now, if we have a look at picture I2, the next slide, Jack 61, you'll see exactly where Brutus alerted in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Have a look where the dog alerted. Right there, 15, right? Alert 15, and blow me down to the right-hand side. What is also present there? The pelvic bone. Now, I have no idea whether Brutus alerted at that the pelvic bone, but isn't this now weird? You have a cadaver dog hit in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. You've got Jason Jost in the Manitowoc County gravel pit with 4 cadaver dogs. They must have alerted. So you know what they did? they asked her to go back. The investigators asked her to go back with Brutus and other dogs. Brutus alerted on a burn pile on cement slabs. In the Manitowoc County gravel pit, Brutus detects human decomposition. To the right-hand side, further down, that's where they found the pelvic bone and other bone fragments. And there were, I think, 3 piles in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, of which Dr. Eisenberg said they were burnt bones, human. Wait a minute. Guys, what the hell are those human bones doing there? They are nowhere near Stephen's property. Susan.
That is not what she said at trial, but she did put it in her report.
Report, correct.
Yes,
They never mentioned the bone fragments that were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. She was only asked about the pelvic bone fragment found there, and she said, suspect, possible human. Never mentioned her report that they found 3 bone piles that contain human bones, burnt human bones, and Dr. Eisenberg examined all the cremains and said, 1 victim, no duplicate bones. Guys, I can't understand what the hell's going on.
Anthony
Susan.
Hills is asking, how was access controlled to this gravel pit in 05? I think they had the entire thing blocked off. Right?
Yeah, that I don't know. That I do not know. Now, remember, the law enforcement would have focused on the Avery salvage yard until they got reports that the dogs were alerting off the property, and they then would have gone there to check. Now, we know that Jason Jost was there on November the 7th in Redon's Quarry, and in actual fact, you can actually see the white trailers just above Julie Kramer's head to the left. So Jost was in that area. Then Jost went into the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and the dogs alerted. And then Brutus came back and alerted at spot 15, alert 15. That's remarkable, Susan.
I can't help but notice all of those alerts at the conveyor road where it enters Avery salvage yard.
Yep, correct.
They're on this map.
Correct. 100% correct. Something weird is going on here, guys. So it looks like potentially Teresa Horbach's remains were dispersed. That's a viable possibility. Guys, do we have any Jack 61?
Yeah, sorry, Doc. It's either got to be that or they have a second victim that they ignored. One of the 2.
Yep.
I agree.
According to the good doctor, there's no duplicate bones. And when I looked at all the cremains, 60% of the skeletal remains are missing. We mustn't forget that. They never found a full intact skeleton. So, where the hell's the rest of it? We don't know. We do not know. Right? Now, I'll tell you why all of this is relevant, guys. Can we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61? Unless we've got, wait a minute. Do we have any other questions or we're all good? I think we're all good. So this is why this is so important. And this is why Mr. Kratz didn't want anyone asking any questions. And now it becomes obvious because human cremains were found allegedly in Stephen Avery's burn pit, the so-called boxer bones. Human cremains were found in Yunderburn barrel number 2. And human cremains were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And there was a pelvic bone fragment that Eisenberg refused to classify as being human. She said, suspect human. Susan.
Well, you know what Kratz would say? Stephen took those out and spread them out in the quarry.
Well, Well, I'm glad you said that, Susan, because have a look what Strang said. Sorry, what Buting said during the trial. Now, he would have known. He would have looked at this thinking, wait a minute, what the hell is Stephen Avery spreading her cremains all over the place? It makes no sense. But guys, now think about it. Instead of the cremains being spread out, the cremains were brought back. Do you understand? You understand, guys? The logical explanation is the reason why you find them in Stephen Avery's burn pit and even in the burn barrel is because they were dropped there, right? Jason Jost could have simply gone past the Stephen Avery's burn pit, dropped in the cremains, walked past the burn barrel, dropped the rest, and that's it. It could have been as simple as that. Guys, do we have any comments? All right.
I think like everybody else, Doc, I'm pretty much speechless because this opens up whole other possibilities here. And quite honestly, my suspicion is that Kratz knew it.
Yep. No question. No question. And also, just to answer the question about the pelvic bone, it was only a pelvic bone fragment, right? Because remember, when you're looking at a human pelvis, you've got the left and the right pelvis. There was an ilium bone, which is part of the pelvis, in Stephen Avery's allegedly burn pit. The other part of the pelvis was in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. It had been cut. It had been sliced. So there's no question when Eisenberg looked at all the bones, there's only one victim, according to Eisenberg. And when she weighed the bones, 60% of the skeleton is missing. So it's really bizarre. So Jack 61, can we have a look at slide I4? Now, Buting, he's no dummy. He knew, he goes, wait a minute, there's something not right here, right? I don't recall. Are you there?
I am.
Do you see slide I4?
I'm still seeing I3.
Okay, we'll just wait for that to come up. Can you see it?
You're lagging. It's up.
Is it? You're lagging?
Okay, now I can.
You can see it? Have a read what Buting said during Stephen Avery's trial. Let's go for it.
Because if that body was burned elsewhere and then moved and dumped on Mr. Avery's burn pit, then Stephen Avery is not guilty, plain and simple. Because no one would burn a body somewhere else and then move the remains and dump them in your own backyard. No one would do that. Now that's why the state has gone to such trouble avoiding the fact that the bones were moved. That's why you heard nothing about it here, because it does not fit with their theory that Avery is guilty. They know that if you come to believe that there is reasonable doubt about whether those bones were moved to Mr. Avery's backyard, then you're going to find him not guilty.
Boom. There you go. Like Buting knew, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense, right? So that's why you can't have Jost appearing on the stand saying, oh, yeah, no, I was at the county gravel pit, dogs hit. I was at the Redonce pit, dogs hit. Because that's going to give the game away, because all the dogs are hitting off the salvage yard. Susan.
I just want to remind everybody of that first jury vote. 7 not guilty.
Yes.
4 guilty and 1 undecided.
Yes.
I think Buting and Strang made their case, and I think the jury was tampered with.
That's very, very likely. Thank you very much, Susan. Jack 61.
Can you imagine, though, if Buting and Strang had dug just a little deeper and presented what we have here in these reports and put it together?
Yeah, it would be undeniable.
Case over.
Yeah, if he had given the whole chapter 6, the stuff that we just dug into, piece by piece as a PowerPoint presentation, Kratz and crew would have run out of the courtroom, right?
Yeah, his hair would have been on fire.
On fire, absolutely on fire. Now, Kratz again. Sorry, I don't recall. Do you have a comment? No, I probably just got the microphone on. Kratz is no dummy. He knew he had to put a stop to this. Susan, do you have a comment?
Like Anthony Hill's comment, Judge Willis, I can't see the relevance at this time.
Correct. Now, Jack 61, can we have the next slide, please? And Susan, do you see it?
Was that the
it's
same
5-5.
one? Oh, yeah. There it is.
In your best Mr. Kratz voice.
The bones were moved, but they were moved by Mr. Avery. These bones in the quarry, I'm going to take about 20 seconds to talk about, because the best anybody can say is that they are possible human. What does possible human mean? Well, it means we don't know what it is, all right? The best anthropologists in the world don't know what these bones are. Dr. Eisenberg didn't know what they were. Dr. Ferak didn't know what they were. He agreed with that.
We'll just get to the other side. There we go.
Oh, okay. And you heard a stipulation being read to you by a person by the name of Les McCurdy. Stipulation just means an agreement between the parties that these bones, we felt it important enough, were sent out to the FBI. And Les McCurdy from the FBI determined that these bones were so degraded that they were in such a shape that even through testing, what's called mitochondrial DNA testing, whether they are human or not, could not, even by the FBI, be determined. So, the bones in the quarry are really not evidence in this case.
Jesus.
And so Mr. Strang has made a big deal out of showing you maps and a little flag and things like that about a possible bone. Again, speculation, conjecture is not part of this case. Facts are going to be what decides this case.
Oh my God. So there you go, right? The amount of bullshit that was in that statement is off the charts. Now,
my God.
Kratz knew that had all the stuff about Jost being presented during the trial and all the dog reports being presented in the trial, there would have been huge uproar, right? So Kratz was basically making that particular bone fragment disappear. It's irrelevant. No problems at all. Yeah, okay, a cadaver dog hid over there. He didn't even mention it, which goes to show how important to the case it was to Kratz to keep it out. Jack 61.
I'm remembering this, and I posted it in our private chat a few days ago. This Forensic Files episode that I watched, and in this particular case, this girl, it actually happened here about 40 miles from me. This girl, her boyfriend, killed her. He choked her out, and he was he's just a mean bastard. Anyway, they cut her up. Him and his friend cut her up, dismembered her, put her in a fire pit, and burned her up. And then they took the cremains and scattered them. Anyway, some of these cremains ended up in the bottom of the sump pump at the house, and they were able, these whoever they were at the Michigan State Crime Lab.
Yes.
All she had to do was take the bone after they got him cleaned, and under a 100-power microscope, a human bone is clearly identifiable. Now, these bones
100%.
were burned up bad, just like Teresa's. They were calcined. A lot of them were calcined.
Correct.
So I'm calling bullshit, Doc.
Correct. Dr. Eisenberg refused to simply place the bone under a microscope and check it out. She refused. And as Jack 61 pointed out to, all they had to do was place the bone under a high-powered microscope, photograph it, check the internal structure, and determine whether it was human or animal. Furthermore, they could have done antibody studies like they did with the Christine Rudy case. It would have taken them a day to determine whether it was human or animal. Eisenberg refused to do it. And as people pointed out in chat, the irony is that all these bones were given back to the Horbach family. The very bones that Kratz said in court had nothing to do with this case. No one could identify them. And to make matters worse, there are new tests today that can test cremains and extract DNA from them. We're never going to get a chance to test that now. Susan.
And we all know who pays Eisenberg's salary.
Oh, correct. 100% correct. So you've got Jost, you've got cadaver dogs, you've got dog tracks, you've got dog hits, nothing presented in court. Now, we'll do 2 more slides because this is going to get you really angry.
And he didn't report any of it, Doc. He didn't write a report. Nothing.
No, nothing written in a report. We pieced it together bit by bit, right? And now we've got an overall picture. But this is going to really piss you off. Not only was Loof, who's a bloodhound, there was another bloodhound that was called in, and was bloodhound Raz. Now, who would like to read this out? We've got 2 more slides to do, guys. Who would like to read this one out?
I nominate Jack.
Jack.
Okay, that's good too.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so this is Bloodhound Raz.
Okay. On Tuesday, November 8, 2005, at 8:30 a.m., I received a call from Officer Sarah Fausk of the Kaukauna PD asking for my assistance with my bloodhounds in locating a missing woman in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. I told Officer Fausk I would be able to assist in any way I could. I arrived at the scene on Avery Road at 11:11 a.m. I was directed to the command post where I was met by Officer Fausk and Assistant Chief of Police Kevin Shepherdson. I was informed that the person I was looking for was Teresa Halbach. Teresa was last seen at the Avery Auto Salvage located at 12930 Avery Road on Monday, October 31st. I was taken to the area where Teresa was last seen. I had my bloodhound Raz do a perimeter of the area. At 11:30 a.m., I put her into a harness and I gave her Teresa's scent that I had obtained from the inside of Teresa's shoe. Raz immediately took a track, going to the backyard behind Avery's garage and to the fence line, running back and forth along the fence line for several minutes before working her way west towards the gravel pits. From here, she headed south along the berm, with the junkyard on the east side and the gravel pit on the west side, and showed major interest in the east side of this area, jumping up on me to indicate the scent was very strong in that area. From there, she headed back towards Stephen Avery's house, going to the back door onto the south end of the trailer and asking to go in. I pulled her off and told her to continue on. From there, she headed down the road for about 2 city blocks before turning herself around and again going back to Stephen Avery's yard, going into the backyard and working the fence line back and forth for a few minutes. From there, she jumped on the fence and went down into the junkyard, working her way among the junk cars. Raz worked this whole area for quite a while, taking me to the trailers west of the property, out to the cul-de-sac, gave me a negative, and took me back into the gravel pit area, and proceeded to take me to an area where I was told they had found Teresa's car. From here, Raz worked the upper ridges of the pit, always giving me a negative at the top, leading me to believe the scent was more concentrated in the junkyard. I pulled Raz off the search at 1:15 p.m. Jody Disher.
Wow. So notice there's no, now remember, look at the time, around 11:30. When did Jason Jost find the very first bone?
It was like 1:30, wasn't it, Doc? I can't remember.
1:30?
Yes.
Guys, do you realize that this dog ran right past the bone?
It did.
It ran right past the bone. This is a scent dog. Ran right past the bone. Did it go to the burn pit?
Nope.
Did it go to Stephen Avery's burn barrel?
Nope.
It went to the back towards the fence line. So
that's right.
This is sorry, Susan.
But do scent dogs detect cremains?
They may detect cremains, because remember what else they allegedly found in the burn pit? Part of Teresa Horbach's clothing.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Part of her clothing, right? So one would expect a cadaver dog to go absolutely crazy at the burn pit. But the scent dog had no interest anywhere else. It went past the burn barrel. It went past the burn pit. It went past the bones and made a beeline towards the bank, right? So check this out. Jack 61, can we have a look at the last slide for today, please? So this is an absolutely unbelievable picture, again, taken by McConnell from a helicopter. Have a look at this, right? I've orientated to you the directions. And Raz, you see where that red is? That's the fence line. Raz was running up and down the fence line. And wait for it. Raz eventually jumped over the fence line and went towards where the RAV4 was found. This is a scent dog. And it went to the location where the RAV4 was. And remember, this is November the 8th, right? The RAV4 has already been removed, but the scent was still present, right? But notice the dog doesn't go to Susan.
Oh, I didn't want to stop you, dog.
Okay. The dog.
Go ahead.
Susan.
Go ahead.
The dog doesn't go to the van. The dog doesn't go to the burn barrel. The dog has some interest on Stephen Avery's back door, but the dog goes straight past the burn pit, past the bone, and goes to the fence line and is spending several minutes at the fence line. Jack 61, did you have a comment?
Oh, no, Doc, I didn't. No. I think Susan does. Susan.
I do, Doc. Yeah.
Susan.
This is making me think of the lights, the taillights that Stephen saw the night of the 4th.
Well. Do you see that big red? Do you see that big yellow line?
Mm-hmm.
That's the berm. That's where the dog went. Right? In the description, you've got the pit at the west, and you've got the salvage yard to the east, and the dog headed south.
Yeah, and he said the lights were behind his trailer.
Behind his trailer?
Yep.
Holy shit. Did we just discover the RAV? I mean, I can't explain it. Or someone going with some type of vehicle moving something, because how do you explain why a scent dog is more interested in the back fence line, spending several minutes there, and then heading down the berm towards the back?
Yeah. And then going to the RAV, basically, from there.
Yes. And I believe it also went to Cuss Road, but then came back.
Yep.
So you've got another scent dog mimicking what Loof did. Guys, can you see it? Now, tell me, did any of this get in the trial?
Oh, hell no.
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 Guys, and in chat, none of this made it in the trial. So that's why you can see the dogs are telling a different narrative. If Teresa was killed, and I don't want to be disrespectful, in Stephen Avery's trailer, the dog would have leapt through the window.
Or
That's
garage.
Or garage. That's the highest concentration of scent. A cadaver dog and a scent dog would have just simply circled the two properties saying, guys, this is where the shit went down. But the dogs are all over the place. They're in Redon's property. They're in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. They're at Cuss Road.
As many dogs as they used for these many days, we don't have near all the tracks.
No.
Right?
No,
Not
we've
even.
got some tracks, which we're going to cover later on when we bring all this together. But what I want to, that's why I don't want to rush it. I want to systematically do this piece by piece. And I think a strong picture is starting to emerge that doesn't make any sense at all, right? What the state is saying, and also what Brendan Dassey confessed to, cannot be true. It cannot be true, Jack 61.
Yeah, Susan hit the nail on the head. We're not even close to the number of tracks that actually transpired in the 7, 8 days, whatever, that the many dogs were on that property. Well, mainly off of the property.
Correct. And people in chat, let us know whether these diagrams that we're putting up have been helpful for you to understand what went down, what happened, whether those diagrams have been helpful, because they certainly helped me a lot. I had no idea. And when you saw that large map where all the action was taking place, you can clearly see that it was off the Avery salvage yard, right? And all you got to do is follow where Ertul was, and now Jason Jost, right? And who admitted being at the burn pit one day prior to the bones being found? Sergeant Jason Jost. You just can't make this up. So, guys, what I like to do, I like to finish the podcast here because we're now going to go into another section. I don't want to rush this, right? You need time to digest it and go over it. Now we're going to go into the next podcast. We're going to go into the processing of the burn pit. And I know that Duke is very, very interested in this particular aspect of the case. And he has agreed. He's going to do a podcast with the Foul Play team on this area. He's going to take it even further, which is fantastic, right? But, appreciate that it takes a long, long time to put all this stuff together. But once you see it, you can definitely see that there's a pattern emerging. Kratz was trying to cover all the tracks. He didn't want you to ask any questions about the dogs. And it's obvious now. And they even got another dog, Raz, who did the same thing as what Loof did. Scented, boom, off she went. Or I'm not sure whether Raz is a male or female, but boom, off the dog went. They went and Raz, the crazy thing is, Raz went right past the burn barrel, the van, the garage, Stephen Avery's trailer, and the burn pit, and went straight to the back fence. Hey, Neverly, welcome.
Hello, everybody. I made it.
You made it for the last slide.
You made it.
Hey, Nev.
I'm
But
sorry.
you made it.
Yeah.
But you
But I
made
did
it.
it. Correct.
Fantastic.
We're
Fantastic.
done under you. Okay, you guys continue.
Yes. We're gonna do a wrap up now. But hopefully that you guys have enjoyed the podcast. Like I said, I don't want to rush it because there's just so much information. But let me tell you now, the next couple of podcasts are just gonna, if your mind isn't blown, it's gonna completely blow your mind what allegedly was found in the burn pit and by who, right? And now we start factoring in Eisenberg, what she found in her report, the photographs that were available, and we're going to have a close look at item BZ. And if you thought you knew what item BZ was, you're wrong. You're wrong. And once you discover really what item BZ was, what Culhane used, you're going to start shaking your head. Because if this item, I'm not going to talk about it now, if this item was in the burn pit, it would have driven every cadaver, possibly scent dog, insane if this item was present in the burn pit.
Even bear.
Even bear. Right? So I don't want to sound disrespectful, right? But have you ever walked down the street and you smell someone cooking a barbecue? It's indistinguishable, that odor. And someone could be hundreds of meters away cooking a barbie. If you're downwind, you're going to smell it. It's unmistakable. If this item was present in the burn pit, everyone would have come running out. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Right, Jack 61, you've seen the pictures. This is going to blow your mind.
Absolutely.
And the good thing is that Duke is going to do a further analysis on the sifting of the burn pit and the burn barrels, I think, which is phenomenal. Incredible. So once you see the picture emerge, you're left with the conclusion that the burn pit was staged. The whole thing was staged, right? Follow where Jost went, follow search team A, and look at the evidence that just fell from the sky on November the 8th. It's like, whoa, it's the red letter day, literally. So something happened between November the 6th and November the 8th. And that's Cuss Road. That's Cuss Road. All right, guys. Jack 61, did you have a comment?
Just a brief one, and this comes from the results of what was presented today. I'm really interested in these other canines that Jost was around on the 7th. We have to know who they are, and if there are any reports turned in, and photos.
Correct. And the fact that we get said none exist, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. Right.
It is. It really is.
Correct. So the interesting thing is where Jost was, there were cadaver dogs in 3 locations. Jost, cadaver dogs. Jost feeds bear. Jost, one day after, discovers all the cremains in the burn pit, and photographs on November the 6th. We're looking at it going, what the hell? Now, listen to this. I checked the meteorological report from November the 6th to November the 11th, and it didn't rain. It rained on October the 31st, big time. I went back and checked all the records. No rain from the 6th to the 11th in the Manitowoc area where Stephen Avery's residence was. So how did these bones magically appear out of the ash from the 6th, nothing, to the 8th? How? It wasn't by rain.
Somebody did a dump job. That's clear as day to me.
Right? And the clue also is the fact that you've got human cut, burnt cremains in yonder burn barrel number 2, which means that the bones were moved or dumped. And the other clue is there are bones outside the burn pit, right? So all someone had to do was with a bucket, tip them, and some flew out or some dropped, and that's it, right? But wait till you see the sifting of the burn pit by both Ertl and then Pevito. Oh boy. Jack 61.
And I'll harp on it one more time. With all the activity that Jost did, he didn't turn in a report.
No report.
Nothing. And he wasn't going to write a report to the 8th until Sipple browbeat him into it.
Correct. And I think we need to play that phone call again. That's such an important phone call, Jack 61. It really, really is. And let me tell you right now, had none of the dogs been on that property, the state would have gotten away with this.
I can play it now if you want. If you want me to play it now.
Let's finish it off with that call.
All right,
Yes.
a second. I'll pull it up.
Thank you.
Yep. Awesome. I think that'll be an excellent way to end the podcast with the call with Jost, and just listen to what he says. It's truly remarkable. Do we have to mute? We have to mute, don't we? Oh, yes.
Yes, but it's going to take me a minute to dig it out. Just give me just a second.
Yeah. Before you play the call, a big shout out to Brother Yoriz, who did the interactive map, and you can check it on our website. It's got all the dog tracks. It's got the finding of the bones, pictures, photos. Check it out and just check where the dog tracks are. Don't worry, in the oncoming podcast, we will go through each one of those. And once you see where all the dog tracks are, you're just going to shake your head in disbelief. But now we have dragged Jost into the equation, right? And where he was and what he did, and the fact that he wrote no reports about it is very interesting. So we'll just wait for Jack 61 to play that call, unless there are any other questions at the moment. How are we doing for questions in chat?
Doc had some, or Travis had some questions.
Yes.
He says, which is the bone that Doc said was able to establish it was TH? And where was that bone found?
There's no. Here's the issue. The bones that were examined were initially examined by Dr. Bennett. They were bones that were found in the box of bones that were handed to Dr. Bennett. Dr. Bennett found an ilium bone, which is part of the female hip. So by looking at the morphology of the bone, an anthropologist can determine that it's from a female, because males and females differ in specific bones, right? The human skeleton is mainly identical, but there's strategic bones that can be used to determine between a male and a female. These are characteristic, they're called diagnostic bones. So Dr. Bennett looked at the ilium bone, and because of the shape, morphology, structure, was able to determine that it was from an adult human female. No bones have been tested for DNA. No DNA has been extracted from any bones, right? That's the important thing. So it was the ilium bone that determined it was from an adult human female. Dr. Eisenberg also examined the bones, and I think she determined that there was a notch in the skull and I think elbow that were diagnostic for being characteristic human female. So from a morphological point of view, the cremains were identified as adult female. But
Doc.
there was no DNA extracted from bones, Susan.
Duke asks, did Dr. Bennett mention tissue? And that was a different bone tissue was on, right?
He's onto something. No, and don't worry. We'll cover that. And I know that Duke is going to cover that because it is complete fuckery. What took place is going to blow you away. And let's just say the tactics used by Culhane and Kratz in the courtroom, once you see the photograph and what he had in his book, you're going to look at it and go, what the fuck? You're kidding.
Yep.
And Duke hit the nail on the head. And that's why I'm saying right now to pre-warn everyone, if you thought you knew what item BZ was, you got it all wrong.
I was wrong.
I was wrong too. I was wrong as well. I'm thinking,
Me too.
What did Culhane do? What did the FBI do? Oh no. Once you see it, and once you see the reports written by Eisenberg, and you put two and two together, you go, holy shit. That's why I said to you, if this item was in the burn pit, every cadaver dog from 2 miles away would have been coming in straight away. Right, guys? Do you agree?
I do. I've
Absolutely. Yeah.
Once you see it, you go, oh no. No. Something is not wrong. And Bear would have never left the burn pit. Bear's nose would have been right in that burn pit. Right, guys?
Yep.
All right. So
Doc, Travis has a question.
Go ahead, Susan.
Sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead.
He says, so there is no DNA link to any bone? So it's still the genes that made that link?
Yep.
Yep, correct. And the only DNA they got, and also mitochondria, is from a tissue piece.
He also says last night someone said Doc was able to substantiate that TH was identified. So that was wrong.
It's not through bones, but you got to look at the entire picture.
Yeah.
So you've got a missing adult female. You find human cremains that are from an adult female. With the bones, there's meant to have been muscle tissue with the bones. So if you put two and two together, Culhane extracted genomic DNA from the muscle tissue, which I got completely wrong where it came from, and Kratz made a mistake. So the DNA from that muscle tissue, 7 out of 15 loci matched, but the FBI extracted mitochondrial DNA, and the DNA is a perfect match with Teresa Hallbach's mother.
Yeah.
So it most definitely is Teresa Hallbach.
And there's a number of alleles that you talked about before. The number of alleles that they matched of the 7.
1 billion. Yeah, correct. So there's a 1 in a billion chance that it's not Teresa Hallbach. 1 in a billion. So at that time in 2005, I did a quick calculation. There were 7 people on this earth that had the same profile, 7 out of 15.
And then you add in the mitochondrial DNA, and
correct.
That's it.
Correct. The mitochondria comes from your mother, directly from your mother. And Karen Hallbach had what's called heteroplasmy. she had 2 different types of mitochondria that varied by 1 base, 1 nucleotide. Teresa Halbach had one of those variations, exactly like her mum. And the DNA is part. If you sequence your mitochondrial DNA, it's the same as your mother's. If you sequence your mother's mitochondria, it's the same as her grandmother. So it's direct lineage from female to female. Right? Because
all maternal.
All maternal. It's all maternally derived. So when you look at the molecular evidence, when you look at the forensic evidence, the anthropological evidence, the bones, it's a 1 in a billion chance that it's not Teresa Halbach. Correct.
Yeah,
Travis has one more question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, far away.
He says, remind me what defense was able to establish with their expert.
Well, the defense only called a forensic anthropologist, Fairgrieve. They didn't have a molecular biology expert. And the question was with Fairgrieve, I don't think he disputed the finding of Eisenberg. His only concern was you can't determine where the primary burn site is. The state is saying the primary burn site is the burn pit. Fairgrieve saying you can't determine that. And they found, I'm telling you now, they found bones at Cuss Road. They even wrote it themselves.
Without a doubt.
They found bones in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. I think there were 3 or 4 bone piles.
That's right.
And Eisenberg checked them all. And Kathleen Zellner even showed her report saying, cut, human, bone, burnt. They're all over the place. And we have 1 victim. So, Kratz...
And then add to that, Doc, the report from Jost of the dog handler digging at the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
On a concrete slab.
On a concrete slab.
On a burn site. Right?
Yep.
So the frustrating thing is today we have the technology to extract the DNA from those bones. It's been done, but the state gave all the bones back. So we'll never find out.
Yep.
Excellent questions. Do we have any more questions? I like all these molecular biology questions.
Hell yeah, that's right up your alley.
Anything else? Oh, it's not Carmen Bootwell. No.
No.
The dates of cremation are completely different. When those bones were found,
and they're not directly related.
No, completely not. No, they're definitely from Teresa Halbach, correct. But the frustrating thing is, we could have been 100% certain today. We could have taken DNA from the bones, even sequenced the DNA to prove that it is Teresa Halbach, because we have a pap smear. We have her genomic DNA profile from a pap smear. We could have easily checked, right? But the state gave the bones back. Correct.
Yep.
Check 61.
And Travis says, I thought the defense expert said the bone pit was not primary.
He argued that it wasn't. And even the state, even Eisenberg could not be definitive.
She waffled. She had to backpedal.
She had to backpedal because Strang asked a brilliant question. He said, so the bones in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, Yonder burn barrel number 2, and Stephen Avery's burn pit were all burnt, cut to the same extent? And she goes, yes. She goes, yes. And to make a farce, he said, there's no meteorological weather that can suddenly transport bones from the burn pit to Yonder burn barrel number 2.
I remember that.
And I laughed with, who was it with? Who did I read it with? The English gentleman. I forgot his name. We laughed for half an hour.
You're talking about not Merlin. He went by Merlin, but Sean.
Yeah, Sean. We laughed for half an hour because Strang was insinuating to Eisenberg, did a tornado suddenly come and pick up 4 bone pieces and transport them to Yonder burn barrel number 2? She goes, no.
I
No.
remember that.
Correct. And
We have more questions.
more, or just one more comment. On November the 5th, Brutus hit on 2 Yonder burn barrels on November the 5th. Oh, no, I got balloons.
You did.
Yep. Susan, do we have another question?
So Travis says, so here's the big question. How is the dog stuff different than what they argued at trial?
They
They
didn't
didn't argue.
present
They didn't present it at trial. That's the problem.
the stuff that we're going through now wasn't presented. The only thing that was presented was Brutus hitting on Teresa's RAV4 twice at the back, Brutus going in the Stephen Avery's trailer and not hitting in the master bedroom and giving an alert in the bathroom, laundry area, and Brutus hitting on 2 of the burn barrels. That's it.
That's it.
Everything
And Kratz saying he spent 30 seconds.
20
I'm
seconds.
I'm going to spend
20
20 seconds
seconds
on the quarry.
So
Yeah.
everything you've seen in this chapter, 99% the jury never heard. So there was no argument.
Nan's Life has a question as well. She says, why do you think the state gave those bones back?
They didn't want them to be tested.
That's right.
And this is the problem. If those bones at Cuss Road, there were definitely bones at Cuss Road, and if the bones in the Manitowoc County gravel pit and in Yonder burn barrel number 2 were all from Teresa Horbach,
Case over.
Houston, we have a problem, right? You cannot explain. No one saw Stephen Avery head out to the Manitowoc County gravel pit. There are workers there. And there are workers, Growell was there, right adjacent to the Manitowoc County gravel pit. So if you confirm that those bones all came from Teresa Horbach, you got a clusterfuck of a case. How is anyone sitting in the jury going, Stephen did all these nasty things, but he left some breadcrumbs in his own burn pit, but went over to Cuss Road, dumped some bones there, went to the Manitowoc County gravel pit in 3 separate piles, dumped part of her cremains there, and for good measure, dumped 4 bones in his sister's burn barrel.
And it's worse. And it's worse if it's not Teresa. And like I said earlier, and it's another victim, and they didn't investigate. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah.
And they gave the bones back to the Horbach family.
Allegedly.
Travis says they argued that she was burned off site and dumped into burn pit. Did they? They said Brendan,
Strang was arguing that's exactly what happened, and we even read out what Buning said, that the bones were brought back.
Yeah,
that they were
no,
back.
But this is the opposite. He's saying they argued that she was burned off site.
Yes.
Oh, I guess they did in a way. And say how ridiculous that would be.
How ridiculous
Correct.
It was. Well, what I just read out. What was read out, what Buting said, saying, if the bones were brought back, then my client cannot be guilty because no one's going to bring bones and put them in behind their back door.
Well, hell no.
And if you look at the photographs of November the 6th, there are no bones. That's a problem. There's not. And Sturtevant got caught in a lie. Not in a lie. He told the truth. Because where were the bones? Oh, they're in the ash. Sort of in a pile? Yeah, in a pile. In a pile. So they would have just picked them. And I'm going to show you a photograph later on where there are bone fragments intertwined in the tire wires. When you look at it, you go, that's not bone. That cannot be bone.
No.
Right? Sturtevant saw it from 8, 10 feet away. Oh yeah, I could see the bones intertwined.
So they were
Whereas
obvious bone.
they were obvious. So all you had to do is get them in a bucket and go tip, boom, and walk away. Walk away, come back one day later and say, oh, look, I think we need to investigate. And that's how it went down, in my opinion. It was as simple as that. And Bear was not aggressive. And I think the dropping of the dog food was just a bullshit ruse to say, see, yeah, I was there. Why were you there, Mr. Jost? Sergeant Jost? Oh, because I fed the dog. And we shown you that the dog had 2 big buckets full of dog food, one of which was at an angle like that, indicative that it's been tipped out. Right, Jack 61? We've all
That's
fed
right.
dogs.
Absolutely.
We've all fed dogs. No dog eats food at an angle like that. It's scattered everywhere.
Even
So
if you got even if you got a bag of food and you tip it, it settles back at that angle unless you shake the bag over.
Correct.
Had food right in his doghouse and right outside of it.
That's right.
That's correct.
JD asks, do we know what Hallbox did with the bones? Well,
No.
we don't even have proof that the Hallbox received the bones, actually.
Funeral home did not sign the chain of custody document.
No. And what they would have done is they would have either re-cremated them, and they would have put them in a cremulator. They would have crushed them to powder and given them as an urn. They would have never handed back bones. You never hand back bones.
No.
It's all crushed to ash.
Or would they possibly have buried the bones?
No, that's so tactless. You normally present bones in an urn, in a nice, attractive urn. Could you imagine the shock of seeing your daughter's bones?
Yeah.
Well, since she was already cremated anyway, I tend to agree. I understand what Susan's saying, that
I mean, if they were in a container and they didn't have to view them,
right? They were sealed.
You know.
Remember, guys, this is biological material. You can't just hand back biological material. You don't know whether it's got viruses, bacteria, fungi.
Yeah.
No, you don't do shit like that.
Yeah.
No.
If it gets if the casket were to leak and groundwater gets contaminated, you could have a problem. Yeah.
Normally those bones would have been recremated, placed in a cremulator and ground to dust.
Crushed. Yeah.
Crushed. Correct.
That's some really, really excellent questions.
Yeah, they are.
And I did try, so everyone knows, I did try to find out from the DOJ who made contact in 2011. Did the Hallbox call the state and say, hey, or was it the other way around? The state said, hey, we've got an opening here. Would you like these remains back? Which I think is what happened, because they didn't tell me there was no communication. They just denied me having it. They said no.
Hey, Doc. Oh, sorry.
Well, they just went on and said no, all the legal blah, blah, blah bullshit. Go ahead, Susan.
Correct.
Travis is calling you out, Doc. He says, bullshit. That's just wrong. Bone is returned all the time.
I've never, in Australia, remember, I'm talking about in Australia. I don't know what they do in the US. In Australia, you would never get bones. Trust me, you won't. They crush them and they put them in an urn. And there are strict laws. But that's in Australia. In Wisconsin,
we'd have to look it up.
Yep, I don't know. Yep. What's rule number 1? Never argue with a lawyer, right? Correct. I'm only saying from my experience, that's what would happen in Australia. They will be crushed, placed in an urn. Here are your daughter's ashes. And the stupid thing is that none of the guys that fished out the bones were anthropologists. No. They just got the bones from plastic bags.
Well, that's another part of it. Again, when these bones were discovered on the 8th, allegedly, the first call should have been to the coroner. That's state law. And they didn't do it. And in fact, barred her from entering the property.
Correct. All right. Do we have any more questions?
Yes.
We do.
Wow.
Let's see. I had to go back a little bit. I got ahead. Travis says, I don't think it would have made a difference, unfortunately, because the most compelling evidence was Stephen's blood in the RAV, and there
Yes.
wasn't a story jury brought on.
Yes. There's no doubt. No doubt. But you have to admit, all the stuff that we're uncovering is making that blood look real shady now, because
really weak.
the narrative doesn't fit. It actually points to planting. And I've given a couple of ways that blood could have gotten in there. I've got to do further work and investigation. I don't think it's as hard as we're making it out to be. But the problem is that the dogs are giving a totally different narrative that's not making sense. And that underpins and weakens the state's case. And what did the state do really hard? They kept the dogs out, and they kept everything at the Manitowoc County gravel pit out, and Cuss Road never happened.
Well, just think about the number of dogs that we know about now that were on and around that property. We have to be approaching 25, 30 dogs at this point. I really don't know. I can't answer the question if somebody were to ask me.
On November the 6th, there were 19 dog handlers. And I tracked all of them. 19 on one day.
Jesus Christ.
That's a lot of dogs.
Wow.
And we know that on November the 7th, they were down at the Manitowoc gravel pit and Redonce. They were there with Jost.
And Cuss Road.
And Cuss Road.
And Cuss Road. That's right.
Correct.
All right. If there's no more questions, I've got the call queued.
Yes. Let's go for it. And thank you, Travis. Thank you for those questions. They were excellent.
Excellent questions. Yeah, everybody that's in Discord is going to have to mute. This is a call between Jason and Jost. Now, to preface this, there's already been another call prior to this. Jost had gotten word from, I think it was Captain Rush, that Sipple wanted to talk to him. So this is a later call. It's on 11/11 at 9:22 p.m. And it's looks like about a 3-minute call. So if you're here in Discord, you will have to mute Discord and unmute YouTube. So here we go.
Jason, Simple needs to talk to you about the other day.
What's that?
Simple needs to talk to you. He's right here.
I was going to stop up there. Well, that's fine. Put him on the phone.
No, that's fine. He said he'll stop there if you want. You want to talk to him? Yeah. Well, and tell Church 61 sitting up here because 45 was having problems, so Charlie brought that back.
Okay, I'll let him know.
You might have to take a different car or bring a different one up here, switch it, whatever you got to do. If you want to come up, that's fine. Here.
Hey, good. Yourself?
Not too bad.
Yeah, I heard Mr. Sergeant Orth told me he wanted to talk to me about some times.
Yeah, we just need to clarify, because I walked out of there before you did.
Mm-hmm.
And did you help him excavate at all?
Yes.
I paused it here intentionally. Did you hear what he said? Did y'all pay attention to that? I walked out of there before you did. Did you help excavate? Did you hear what he said?
Interesting.
Did y'all pay attention to that? I just wanted to point that out. All right, I will continue I'll back up 5 seconds and we'll continue on.
Mm-hmm.
And did you help him excavate at all?
Yes.
Okay. I'll need you to do up a report on that. Because the arson investigator wants a report from everybody who basically touched upon it, more or less. So, from the time that me and you walked in, and you pointed out that you saw that other piece, and then you pointed out that piece to me of the vertebrae.
Mm-hmm.
and then we stepped back. Those two DPI agents came in, the female and the male.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know their names. I know the male is Tom Sturdivant. I don't know the female's name.
Well, the female really didn't have much to do with it. Tom stayed there.
Okay.
At one point I left and he stayed there because I needed to, use the bathroom and everything else.
Okay.
So he stayed there the whole time. Then I came back with the crime lab.
Okay.
And once all their units got there, then we started sifting through it.
All right. Yeah, I've been basically a nice report from you to solidify that. If you want to know who was all in there, basically, and the times that they were in there. So just put something together on paper and attach it to your incident report, and we'll file it that way then.
Would you happen to have the log from when that septic tank was pumped? I don't remember which one of your officers was there.
Oh, that was the brilliant officer.
Was that brilliant? Okay.
Yeah. You got anyone?
Because otherwise I'll stop up there and I just want to look at a couple times on there because I had relieved her for a short time. Then when she came back, that's when I decided to come and talk to you about that.
Oh, okay.
Then then the two of us came back, and then that's kind of where it progressed from there.
Yeah.
So.
All right, why don't you stop out then?
I'll do that.
I'll dig that log out, and I'll have it ready for you then.
Sounds good, Phil.
All right, take care.
Thanks, I'll take it. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just stop up there so they can get their story straight.
Oh, that's what they were doing. And that's why they had to get the times when things certain. So when the stories were written in their reports, they were all gel and mashed together. But the important thing is that none of the stuff that he did in the gravel pit or in Redonce or the car search was ever written in the MTSO report. All that was hidden.
He also said something else that I just caught. I've probably heard it before and didn't pay attention to it. Sipple said, why don't you write that up and attach it to your incident report?
Mm-hmm.
What incident report? So now I need to request that too.
The important thing is if you're going to FOIA, you want anything by Sergeant Jason Jost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to request everything.
Yep.
Including photos.
Oh yeah. Correct. And notice he was involved in the sifting of the burn pit.
Yep.
And that was Deb Strauss. That was with Sturdivant.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. Which is going to be a perfect segue because next week's podcast we're going to focus on the sifting of the burn pit and what was found. And then we're going to dovetail into Pevito, what he did, and then we're going to resolve what was actually in the burn pit. Was it wire? Was it brush? We look at pictures. Oh yeah, it's going to be on for you. It's going to be on.
Pevito is a really interesting character. I'm telling you, came up. He came up when we started finding out what his activities. We of course we didn't have nearly what we have now. I'm talking about late 2016 into 2017. There were a lot of questions about his activities back then.
Correct, but I reckon that Pevito was the straightest guy of the whole lot because he came after first processing of the burn pit, and what he did with his team was the complete opposite to what Earl did. The complete opposite. And let me tell you right now, if Pevito could have killed Earl and all of them, he would have done so. Because he had to somehow straighten the shit show. And that's why I can't wait for Duke to do his presentation on the sifting of the burn pit and the burn barrels, because that's going to reveal some really interesting stuff. Susan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just going to read out Travis's question here. What kind of documents are there about the lab processing the RAV, and where are they found in foul play documents?
I'll answer that. forgive me, Travis. I'm going to get you the lab reports. I actually started to do that like 5 times, and I kept getting sidetracked. I promise you, I'll dig them out of the foul play library, and I'll send them to you in a DM on Discord.
And I
Correct.
had
Is
one
it-
more thing to add. Your preview of next week's podcast sounds like that may include Duke Juke. He may join us. Is that correct?
He may not. I know that he's presenting his own series of slides, which he'll put it this way: for Duke, when we finish these series of podcasts, will be a perfect segue to wrap everything up, if you know what I
Okay.
mean. So
Sure.
I'm going to present all the pre-material, and then Duke will go off on a tangent and pick up the reins. So we're presenting all the important stuff to understand what was found, who found it, who did what, and I'm going to bring in Colhane, the dogs, the whole lot, and then if Duke does his podcast, we'll all be there. Oh boy. We need to send the entire series to Kathleen Zellner, because I think it's going to be mind blowing for sure. All right. If there are no further questions, again, thank you so much, guys. What an incredible podcast that one was. Again, it's amazing how you can find all this additional information and put it together as a narrative that can be scrutinized. That's the important thing. All right, guys. Well, look, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share our podcasts. But what I like to do before we close the podcast is go around the panel, tell us what you've been up to and how things are coming along. Andy B. God, what time is it where you are, Andy?
It's just gone to 2 a.m., Doc.
And no problems.
And
Right.
another great podcast.
Thank you.
Really, really good. I'm sure the bit that was read out by Buting in trial was on the was actually in. I don't know whether it was MAM 1 or MAM 2, but I'm sure that is played on the series. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's MAM.
MAM what? Sorry, Doc. Was it?
I think it's MAM 2. This is
Is
when,
it?
yeah, this is when they bring in Scott Tadich and the great big whopping fire.
Right. Yeah. I remember seeing that and thinking, this is like crazy. This is, and that would convince me at trial. Like, why is there everything all around everywhere? And there's only a slight mention of the dogs. Like, it's only afterwards, like kind of like digging into it and like the foul play podcasts, etc. That you know, like there's so much with the dogs and like so much yet to know because there are, I think it's 30 pages or so that are I won't say missing, but haven't been allowed to be FOIA'd or whatever. So all good stuff. All good stuff. And,
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy B. Next we have, I don't recall. How are you coming along?
I'm doing well. I agree. It was another great one. Mind blown. I learned a lot, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't recall. Next we have Susan. Susan, thank you.
No, thank you, Doc. I mean, today was excellent. I love seeing stuff I've never seen before in this case. It's just amazing. It's mind-blowing. And you just did a fantastic job. So thank you, Doc. And thank you, everyone, for being with us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Jack 61.
Mind blown, Doc. Mind blown. I'm not kidding. I've been I've been looking at this case longer than anyone here, and I never put this shit together. I mean, obviously, I knew there was some funny business with the dogs and some of these various movements, but holy shit. Come on. I mean, anyway, excellent job. And the work that you're doing, the work that Duke Juke is doing, is just fantastic, and I love it. So
And
let's
never
keep
and
Neverly,
Neverly.
and Neverly too. Yeah, absolutely, and Neverly.
Yeah.
So let's just keep traveling this path and expand on it as much as we can.
Correct. Yep. And you know what's remarkable is that Sarah Fausk is going to be on Convicting a Murderer.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch the series just for that. I want to see what she actually. I want to see what she actually says, because we've got her documents.
You know,
we know
that's the interesting thing about Sarah Faust, because she's a Kakana police officer.
Yes.
There are no reports for her as being an officer involved in this at Kakana. At least that's what they say. No reports. And I really found that quite interesting, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'm also eager to find out if they ever air Convicting. I mean, here we are getting toward into the end of July, and we still haven't heard shit. So what's going on with that after all this hubbub here a couple months ago?
I think they might be deleting any mention of foul play. That's what I think they're doing.
Well, they may be, and you know, they may be waiting on Judge Angie as well, but I could be wrong. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say, remember, we were interviewed 3 years ago?
Yep.
Before we did any of this.
Yep. Fall of 2020. That's right.
Yep.
We did 4 interviews.
Correct.
Lengthy interviews.
Correct.
Anyway, just a little plug for tomorrow for the open mic at 5 Central. We're going to continue on with the miscellaneous calls from the open records request of 2022. Not a whole lot. I don't think we won't be able to finish it tomorrow. There won't be too many more, though, as I've told everyone. There are less calls, but some of them are really long, and I think the longest one will be starting on tomorrow. I don't know if we can finish it, because I think it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, but we'll give it a go. We'll get where we get and see what we can pick up on. Thanks, everyone.
I mean, I'm not sure who found that Jost call with Simple. That is so unbelievable. Because did you see the nonchalant attitude that he had? Oh. He found Teresa Horbach's cremains.
Yep.
Right? And he's underplaying it. Oh, you mean I need to write a report?
Yeah.
Where is it?
And Simple says, yeah, the arson investigator wants everything on paper. So you got to write a report, bud. God.
And that the arson investigator is Pevito.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, had Pevito come in with the coroner on November the 8th, I think we will be seeing a very different narrative today, guys.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. Absolutely.
I think Stephen and Brendan would not be in prison.
They would not be in prison.
Yeah.
They would not be in prison.
Anyway, thanks, Doc, Neverly, and Duke Juke, and everyone, and thanks to everyone out in the live chat for continuing to support our efforts.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack61. Next, we have Just Rhonda.
Doc, thank you. Thank you to you and Neverly for all the work you've put in to these little nuggets that we're just now getting to see and hear. And to Duke Juke, I'm absolutely looking forward to what you have to share. And yeah, it was another great show of hidden gems. So thank you guys so much. And thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys were popping tonight with great questions and comments. So we really appreciate that.
And also, yes, thank you, Just Rhonda. And also Discord too. That's rocking and rolling. I've had a couple of great discussions in there. And again, bring your ideas, bring your theories, bring your suggestions. when we checked out the GPS coordinates from that document, we all got the same thing, very close to Jambo Creek Road, and you're thinking, it's all gelling, it's all coming together, gelling so well. And again, two people cannot do this whole case. You need an army of people looking at it because it's complex. But hopefully we're peeling the onion layer, piece by piece. We're getting there, guys. And finally, we have Neverly. How's it coming along?
Hello, Dr. Silkman. Hello, panel and everybody in the chat. I'm glad that I caught a little bit of the podcast. Of course, I will re-listen. And to be fair, Dr. Silkman is the driving force and the mind behind all of this work. People, I cannot follow him. The guy is on a different level, like level expert.
No, I'm not.
Okay, he's not. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm privileged that I can work with him, and that's all great and dandy, and everybody's input is really wonderful, and the support that we get from you, because this case is so toxic and so sad and complex that this is, I think, the first time in a long time that we've gotten to something really exciting that's been unknown. It's been always there, but we couldn't put it together.
It has always been there.
Yeah.
Correct.
We just didn't know what the heck is going on. So
it had to be dug
out.
Yeah. To be dug out.
Piece by piece, we're getting there.
John Ferak laid the bare bones. We put meat on them.
Yeah.
By putting a lot, we're on par 14 or something crazy like that. That's one chapter. Right?
Yeah.
We could have read his chapter in 2 hours and finished it. We would have known none of this. But look what we've done. We've introduced Pam Sturm, the finding of the RAV. We've introduced Groel, and now we've introduced Jost, and now we're going right in the heart of the burn pit. Right? You can't get any deeper than that, guys. We're going straight to the heart of the matter, asking the question, was it Stephen? Was it really Stephen and Brendan? Or was it just someone simply with a bucket of bones that ticked them, walked away and said, oh, God, look at them? Yep. Sorry, Neverly. Continue. Sorry.
No. That's okay. Yeah, so that's all from me. And as I said, as soon as we get off this, I'm going to go and re-listen.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. And again, guys, I want to thank my esteemed panel. I can't do this without them. There's no way. It's a group collaborative effort, and you guys have come to the best place. I'm telling you, the stuff that we're uncovering, the stuff that we're discussing, I tell you, we go where the evidence goes, right? We look at it, we discuss it, we disseminate it, we hold nothing back, right? And we're being open and honest as possible. And you guys in chat, you can ask 1,000,001 questions. I don't know all the answers, but we'll try our very, very best. And the more that you can add to the narrative, fantastic. Again, guys, I'd like to thank everyone on the panel and everyone in chat. And we will see you all tomorrow for the open mic. Thank you very much, guys. I'm Dr. Silkman, and I'm from the Foul Play team.
Thanks, everyone. And this has been a Foul Play production.